I think it's weird the way that people see weakness. I always find that really unusual. Like if you speak about it, then somehow it makes you weaker. I often think speaking about weakness makes people, or your weaknesses makes people stronger.
Well, it takes guts to do that, doesn't it? Yeah.
It's also just you. If you, it's as soon as you acknowledge your weakness, it almost isn't the same weakness as it was before.
Are you recording now, Con? Vulnerability in general is a sign of strength. Because the ones who have to keep up the bullshit pretense for the rest of their life are the ones who are living sad, and they're the ones who are truly weak, in my opinion anyway.
I mean, you can paint it any way you want, really. I think some people justify it one way, where if they hide their weakness, then you're strong for hiding it, but if you show it, you can also paint it
I don't feel that way personally.
No, I know that you don't feel it. I think other people, though, they like that sort of stoic character, don't they?
The stiff upper lip, I appreciate that, but if you're living in hell, then there's being pissed off a little bit but if you're living in a really horrible state of mind, then you have to talk about it, in my opinion. But we'll talk about that today. Are you ready to go, mate? Yeah. Alright, today we've got Richard McCann on the show with us.
Thanks a lot for
pleasure.
Appreciate it, mate.
I was passing anyway.
Yeah, why not? up down on the train. I like stories I like success stories, but even more than that, I like stories where people have been through hard times and come out and done really well for themselves, and you're a really great example of that.
I mean, because I'm ginger.
Aye, mate, it's a cross their bear, like, isn't it? Do you know what it is? How old are you?
You're not joking. I'm 47.
I'm not being funny. Fucking hell, mate, you look young. Can you believe that?
Come on.
Ginger people age well, though.
Jesus.
You know what I mean?
Apparently.
47, mate, you look my age.
Yeah.
30.
Yeah. Bang on.
Ish.
Yeah. Late 20s.
Did my research.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I have been through some stuff.
Yeah, you have.
But you know what? Haven't we all? We've all got things we've had to endure, and sometimes people hear my story and go, "Oh, you've been through that. I've been through some stuff, but not as bad as yours." Actually, your stuff's your stuff, and the way that you feel about that challenge, whatever it is, it affects us all the same.
It is. There's a relativity to it, isn't there? Which I think a lot of people overlook.
I was reading something the other day where someone was like, perspective is a tremendous thing, like, and it's how you deal with what you're given in life defines who you are, not what happens. It's how you respond to that.
Absolutely.
So just to give everyone a bit of backstory, do you want to start by explaining sort of what happened to you when you were younger and then where you've come?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to say not just what happened when it was 5 when it happened, the big thing, but even leading up to there, things were tough. We were brought up on like many other people, on a sink estate, a deprived estate, North Leeds, and we were on the at-risk register. Mum and dad weren't doing a very good job. There was lots of alcohol, there was violence, there was, I've got memories of being taken to the social services to choose a toy for Christmas because, mum couldn't afford things, or maybe they could afford it, but they drank all the money that they had. So we had a tough time anyway. But the defining moment for me, it was a week before my 6th birthday, and I'll never forget it. You don't forget things like this. When my mum had been out drinking, and my sister Sonia shook me awake, and she said, "Richard, wake up. Mum's not come home. Let's go look for her." We walked the streets looking for Mum. We walked down a path on the field at the back of the house in the darkness, and we sat and waited. And unbeknown to anybody, especially us, was Mum's body was actually laid on the field, and we'd walked yards from where she lay. She'd been killed that night. On her way home, we later discovered by, most of us will know him, talking about Peter Sutcliffe, who became known as the Yorkshire Ripper, and that thing that happened, threatened to understandably send me under. It was a massive bombshell. My mum was the only thing we had because Dad left when I was 4, and even as I'm sharing it now, still part of me doesn't quite believe that did happen to my mum, and that I am part of this massive thing that's in the news it was been in the news this week, but I am part of that, and it's just like a really surreal journey that I've been on.
When you look back on that little boy, does that almost seem like a different person to you in a weird way? It's almost like when you watch a computer game, you see the character. Is it a bit like that?
Yeah, it's very much like that, because, and maybe I've had to do that to kind of just move on and leave it behind, but it's like it happens. Not just what happened as a kid, other challenges that I've had along the way.
Yeah.
I know we're going fast forward here a little bit, but 20 years ago I was in prison, and it's like, gosh, was I really in prison?
Yeah.
I was locked up.
Sometimes when I look back on things that happened to me as a kid, I actually I think to myself, I feel sorry for that lad. Even though it's me, it doesn't feel like it's me. And I think I wish I could go to that lad now as the man I am and say, it's going to be all right, lad. Like, it's going to, do you know what I mean? I'm sure that there's young men watching now who are probably going through something tough, and it does get better. Like, you know what I mean? Providing that you do what you did, which is find the positives.
Find a way through. In fact, I put a LinkedIn post together today because today is a significant day, because 20 years ago today, after coming out of prison, I reached rock bottom and I formed a suicide pact with my sister. I couldn't get a job. I had this criminal record and I got involved in drugs. But it was a Thursday, so I don't know when this is going out, but on the Thursday in August, at the end of August, I got my final interview. So we didn't obviously do the suicide, and I got the final job. So I went for a final job interview and I got a job just at the very last minute. I was about to lose everything, in fact take my life. I got given this job and it was the start of the turnaround for me. That was 20 years ago. So I get the message is, however dark things get, however bleak things appear, there is a way forward.
So as a child, after going through obviously the worst that any kid can go through at that age, you then, did you go and live with your dad? Well,
Mum and dad separated when I was 4, so she was a single mum, I guess, essentially. We went into a children's home to begin with, and we were reunited with my father, and I felt like a bit of a stranger, really. But the following year, 1976, before you were even born, we set up home with my father and his new girlfriend, and I guess that was the start of the next chapter of my life, and that was the first time that I can remember trying to be positive, because what that little boy told himself was that Mum had been taken. So this is how I dealt with it. Mum had been taken by God. I went to a Catholic primary school, the only Catholic school I went to. But so I'd been introduced to God, and I told myself I'd become 6 by now. I told myself that God had taken Mum away from all the beatings, so that me and my 3 sisters, we could have this.
Sorry, mate.
It's all right. We could have this. That'll be me, Mum. That's the crazy things I tell myself, so that we could have this fresh start with my dad and your girlfriend, and that's what it's all for. And I know, of course, that's not true, but that's what I told myself as a kid, and it was like me trying to find that ray of sunshine in that dark cloud, and it certainly helped me. It'd be fair to say that my thinking influenced where I am now, and my sisters, without going into detail, they didn't or weren't able to think in that way, and their life hasn't unfolded quite like mine has.
It's a bit like what we're saying as we're starting the podcast, is it's not what happens, it's how you sort of think of it, and it's how you perceive that. And
it sounds a lot like you've had a lot of sort of twists or turns, because obviously, if you end up in prison by 20 years ago, then it wasn't as if everything sort of went clean and
no. I mean, you think, don't you, that life's like this? It goes. It's not like that.
No,
and just when things are going well, bang, something else happens.
So while you're going through change of family and you're now with your dad, this man who did this horrible thing is still out there and he's still killing women.
How aware of that were you?
Well, because my mum was the first, this Yorkshire Ripper term wasn't even known about, because it was the first, and it wasn't until the third person to die, Irene Richardson, whose son I've now coincidentally met. It wasn't until she died that then it became known as this Yorkshire Ripper.
Yeah.
I was aware that she got attacked on the way home and she got into a fight. That's all I was told. But then, as it became this big news story, I mean, I had to grow up very quickly when I heard these terms like prostitute and all this stuff. So I was very aware of what was going on, because it was such a massive media thing, and like, even though we'd moved to the other side of Leeds, people were starting to talk about it, and there was like some, recreation of the scene or the night it happened was on the news, and then one of the neighbours were talking to me about it. So it was just, and I had to, before we started shooting there, we talked about this stiff upper lip. I had to pretend that I was kind of all right with it.
Yeah.
They were all talking about it in such a easy way, and it's like, all right, yeah, okay. But deep inside, I was like,
that's
fuming.
my mum you're talking about.
That is my mum,
and also you're a kid, you don't quite understand the context of all of that, why someone will go out there and do that, or why,
Do you know what? Good question. And I've never thought about this until I've never once thought why he did it.
Yeah.
As a child, I was just thinking it was happening. It was like there was this big demon out there. And in fact, going the Northeast connection here, there was a guy, some of the younger viewers won't know this, but there was a guy who pretended to be the Yorkshire Ripper, and he sent me this tape.
Oh, Wearside.
The Wearside.
Her Wearside Jack, I think. He left a tape which was discovered by the police or something.
He sent it to the police.
I remember I heard it because it's, I'm Jack.
Yeah. You're no nearer to catching me now than you were 4 years ago when I started. And going back to your I was thinking, when you started was my bloody mum.
Yeah.
So growing up with all this going on, one, I tried to pretend it didn't happen. I was okay, but inside I wasn't. I needed some help. That's a common thing with a lot of people. We have stuff going on inside, and we start stiff upper lip, and we don't want to face up to these things. But secondly, it was this monster out there, and I thought it was going to kill me as a kid. Sometimes we think the worst, and as much as I try to be positive,
I can only imagine nightmares and whatever else must have happened. Because for me personally, if someone had done that, I would have been terrified. I would have been thinking.
But it feels very close to home, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it doesn't get any closer than your mother.
And literally in the field behind your own.
Well, not only that, and not many people know this unless they've looked into it in detail, but the fifth person to die was a 16-year-old girl called Jane Mcdonald. Now, she lived on the same street that we live with my mum. Wow. She lived 7 houses away, and she used to babysit for us. Not the night mum died.
Wow.
So when Jane got killed, it was like, shit, he must have been watching the house for months. He's killed a babysitter now, and I thought, he's going to kill me. And I've got this memory, so we're talking about 7 or 8 now, being left. I was taken to the local quarry in the local woods with my father, looking for some wood to build a pigeon shed, funnily enough. And because it was a bit kind of dangerous, I was left at ground level where it was like you went down to get into the quarry. They all went to get this wood, and I was left on my own. And I thought, right, he's been following me. He's going to get me now.
Like a classic movie scene almost, sort of, you're on your own, a kid on your own, just waiting for this guy
who's been like tailing me, and he wasn't, obviously. I just kind of and I started screaming hysterically. My dad comes running and said, what's wrong? And I made up this story that there was a guy there that was gonna, I can't remember what I actually said, but I said a guy had tried to attack me, and
that would have been, looking back on it, I assume the trauma just coming out of what you'd been through.
The fear, and also because obviously that's not true, he wasn't there, but because I didn't get any counselling at the time, I just kind of made it all up.
That screaming is a release, I suppose, of some sort of all the shit that's going on inside.
Did you so who did you end up sharing it with at the time? Because obviously it's also, your dad had left your mum, or just, he decided to leave the family, whether it was your mum or whatever the situation was. And like you say, he got a new girlfriend by that point, so it's not like he's sort of emotionally attached in the same way that you're always attached to someone's mother. It must have, because could you talk about it with your dad? Because that must be difficult for the new person who's part of that.
Yeah, it was a taboo subject. Remember, be fair to say, having now got the social services file, that they had quite a turbulent relationship. So, he did leave her after all, so he didn't see her in a positive light. So she was never spoken about in a positive way. In fact, on the few occasions where I recall him speaking about my mum, it was like she was a waste of space type of thing.
Even after the...
Wow. So it wasn't something we spoke about.
As a kid, was that something that you... Like, did you buy into that? Or were you sort of like, don't talk about my mum in that way?
Well, one, I'd never stand up to my dad for a start.
Sure.
So I might have thought like that, but I wouldn't stand up to, because he would have beat us to a pulp, and he did beat us to a pulp. And I'm trying to think about how I just tried to knuckle down and kind of, all right, that's how you're speaking about it, well, sod it.
But that seems like in spite of, rather than with. Do you know what I mean? Like in my mind, a parent, even though my parents are divorced, and every now and again, every divorced parent has that word about that previous parent. They, you always think that if your parent is a supportive person, and you like to think that if that one parent is gone, then the other one will be supportive. And that was never the case for you?
It was not the case. I do believe my dad loved us all.
Yeah.
But he just didn't have the wherewithal, the skills to not only bring up kids. I mean, bring up kids is hard, but for traumatised kids, he just was not equipped to do that. And consequently, we suffered some very brutal beatings at the hands of my father.
Was there a reason for that? Like in his mind?
I guess in his mind, he had done something wrong.
All right.
Like, we had no money in the house.
So this is discipline.
Yes, discipline. So he would beat you. But there was occasions where he would do something for nothing. I've got this memory of being in bed, single bed, and my sister Sonia's beside me. They'd gone out drinking, so Sonia was left to babysit. Anyway, he came into the room at midnight, and he leaned down, and I thought he was going to kiss us goodnight, and he bit onto our noses like that, and and then he bit Sonia's nose. So that's not about discipline. That's about power and drunkenness. And he drowned the dog in the bath. He actually killed the dog but in his eyes, his defence when I challenged him 13 years ago, my first book came out, I sat down and I challenged my father as a man now why he did some of those things, and I asked him about the dog, killing the dog. I mean, his reason for killing the dog was it was a female, it was a bitch, and it came into season. When it came into season, all the dogs on the estate would try and mate with her.
Right.
So I've got this memory back then when the pubs used to shut at 3 o'clock on a Sunday, my dad been asleep in the sofa in the living room, he'd been drinking, and Winnie the dog was scratching at the front door to get in with a big pack of dogs behind her. So my dad was woken up, he leaps out, he pulls the dog in. It was a white dog, so it was filthy, and he took her upstairs, and I thought it was just bathing her. He ran the bath and you could hear the dog, and then it just went quiet, and he took the dog outside and he buried it in the back garden. We never ever spoke about that, and I hated him for that. But when I spoke to him 12-13 years ago about that incident, his defence was, now he grew up in Northern Ireland, and the family, the McCann family, they bred, which have turned out to be a really successful family of greyhounds. They bred greyhounds, and if a greyhound was not going to be successful and it had some deformity, they would just drown the dog there and then. Right. So to him, in his little world, that wasn't such a severe thing and a bad thing as we might see it, and that was his defence. I think he was wrong. By the way.
Did he look shocked when you brought it up?
Not shocked. He would try and defend himself, like, you don't know how it was.
Because it's funny, because as I've become like a man in my life, I realise that the adults around me who like family and that, an extended family, I'm like, oh, you don't realise how much I was fucking paying attention you don't realise what an 8-year-old who's switched on can remember, and they a word of advice I would give to everyone out there who's like maybe a parent or whatever, or thinking about it in the future: always respect kids, because one day you might wish you had have done. Because now, with me being a big bloke and all that, there's a lot of people who wish they'd been very nice to me. You know what I mean? Because they looked at me as a skinny little 8-year-old and thought, it's just. But now, like, people do underestimate, and I think it sounds like you were heavily underestimated as a young man.
Yeah, well, maybe. I'm just trying to think, underestimated in what way?
I think just not respected. I'm like, by your dad at all. Like, I can't work out. I mean, I know you say he loved you, and I don't disbelieve that in 1 second. But to do that to a child is it's one of the worst things. To bite them on the nose, like, it's just anger, isn't it? It's nastiness.
Yeah, there was other things, that, I mean, I won't go into it, but there was things that he did within the family that were horrific. And for many years, I carried a lot of anger for my father. And in fact, I didn't have a great deal to do with him. I tried to, but it just that bond that I used to see with like friends, or maybe even on TV, father and son thing, we just never had it. And but in later years when I matured, it was almost like the balance was shifted, and it was more of a level playing field. In fact, not even that. It went the other way, that I had to teach him how to behave. And
it's funny how kids end up doing that to their parents. What I'm interested in is, to me, when people have bad things happen to them, that anger that you can be left with can almost drown you. It can
consume it.
It can overcome you, And you've obviously had something horrible done by this strange man who you've never met before to your mother, but also then you've got your dad mistreating you. Did you feel any point in your life, like when you were a young lad, that this anger was taken over, or did you always find a way to deal with it?
I won't say that I ever felt that anger was taking over, but I'll be honest here. When I was a young man, 16, 18, I was actually violent to my girlfriend. I'm not saying I beat her up. I'm not saying I punished anybody, but I was. I've got a memory of being drunk one night, and she'd poured a drink over my head, and when we got outside, I'm embarrassed to share this, but it is what it is. I took a twig off a tree outside the Merrion Centre in Leeds, and I was like whacking her on the legs. It was only thin. It was almost a bit jovial, but I shouldn't have been doing that. It
was stupid. Yeah.
And two guys came over who were boxers and were going to batter me, and then I obviously snapped out of that. But the worst thing that I did, which borders on violence, I'm not making excuses here. It was me and my lack of being able to contain that anger. It was my girlfriend. I'm 19 now, just come out of the army, got kicked out of the army. She'd come into a lot of money because her dad died, And she was just, and I moved in with her, and I think she'd just given a few grand away to one of her mates who wasn't, her cousins that wasn't work. She wasted the money, and we got into this fight over the money, and I think she had some money in her hand that she was going to lend her, and so we lived in a block of flats 7 floors up. I wasn't going to do it, but I threatened that I was going to throw her out of the window.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was just trying to scare her not to give her the bloody money, but she didn't know that. And it kind of settled down. Obviously I didn't do it. I didn't throw the money out of the window. I didn't throw her out of the window.
Mm-hmm.
But that night her mum was there waiting for me, and she battered me with her shoe. You know, when I came home, she battered me with the heel of her shoe.
What that says to me though is you weren't taught as a young man through all of this as well, self-control. And for me, it took me quite a lot of years to learn that. And even now, Lawrence will vouch for this, I still struggle with it. It's something I've always had an issue with, like temper. But one thing I did realise being a big lad is if I don't get ahead of me temper, then I'm good. If I do something stupid like you've just described, it could be worse because I'm capable of, like I'm strong, so I might not thinking, if I lose control, it could be very, very bad. So that my fear of what I'm capable of led me to take stock of things. But I think every lad at some point has a moment of fucking hell, I better keep ahead of myself. Yeah.
I think a lot of people also, they underestimate, I think because a strong male figure around a young man can be quite important.
It's not so important.
It's not only about enforcing what maybe what your boundaries are, but also showing someone what they're capable of, and then being able to sort of control that, like you say.
Yeah.
And that's what you didn't have, because you had someone who's completely out of control.
Didn't come into it at all.
But it doesn't sound like you are particularly resentful of your father now, or like you are particularly...
I'm not resentful at all. We lost my dad 3 years ago. He just moved into his new granny flat, and he had pneumonia. He just didn't go to the doctors, and his sister found him on the sofa. And what's really, I'm going to get a bit deep now, what's really mad about my father, I forgave him 10 years ago. What's really mad about my dad and him dying is 2 weeks before he died, I'm in Leeds city centre, and he's outside the Stick and Twist pub. That was his little local cheap beer, and he's having a smoke outside, and I saw him, and I'd come out of this multi-storey car park, and I often beat my horn, and he'd give me a wave, but I beat him on, and he didn't see me, and and he often doesn't see me. I'll just leave it, I'll see him next time. And I got this urge to pull over on double yellow lines and run up this front of this pub, and it's quite up some steps and across this casino forecourt anyway, and I said, "Oh, hi Dad." Anyway, I said I was just going out to Iran to speak. And he was asking me about that. He was asking about my wife. She was ill at the time. And then for the first time, and all his mates were in the pub, all his, I'm going to say his cronies, but his mates that have not seen me in a positive light because I wrote about what he did to us and now speak about it. So I could feel them watching us. But my dad stood up, and for the first time, he went like, I knew he was going to hug me. So we just hugged. And he went, "I love you, son." I said, "I love you, Dad." And that's the last time I saw him. Why did I pull over my car that day? So
do you believe in I don't know, like some things are meant to be?
I do believe some things are meant to be, and I do believe there's some. I'm not religious, but I do believe there's something going on that we can't articulate around us that make things, bring people into your kind of on your journey, and things happen, and we get influenced by maybe those, I don't know, those that have passed over, I don't know, none of us will ever know until we get there, but I do believe I've had too many strange happenings all throughout my journey, which for me tell me there's something bigger than all of us taking place. And in fact, that crazy thought is part of why Mum died. You know, she did, remember I thought when I was a kid that she died for a reason, and I still believe that at a very deep level. I don't speak about that very often, but the truth is that's what I believe. And those thoughts help me. Yeah. And honestly, some mind-blowing things have happened. I mean, that's a really good example of my dad. Having that urge to speak to him that day, and it's the last time I saw him.
It's an incredibly sort of not to be disparaging about the story, but it's an incredibly sort of messy story to put together because there's so many different strands there. There's sort of your mother's side, the father's side, your own journey as well in that. Is that why you decided to sort of write about it and maybe
piece it
bring
together?
It all together for you?
The decision to it gets messier. The decision to write about it was because my sister Sonia, who's been like a soulmate throughout my whole journey, we were the two eldest. We went looking for Mum, and we were we didn't even have to talk. We just look and we knew what we meant. And she stabbed her boyfriend,
right,
in self-defence. Her violent boyfriend. Every man she's ever dated has been violent. In fact, I think I might be right. I might be wrong on the odd occasion, but for all my three sisters, I think almost every single man that they've dated has turned out to be violent.
Right.
Do you know how they say you go for a man like your father? Do you think that there's something in that?
Maybe there's some of that.
Yeah.
Or, there may be some of that, but I think when they meet them, and I've met a lot of them, they turn out to be charming at the beginning.
Right.
So
that's very often the case with abusive men, though. You often find that with abusive men.
Well, yeah, because
can be very charming,
they know that they can't enter into the life of like abusive. So what they do is they put on the show, get them to love them, and then they become the arsehole.
Yeah. And still cover it, I guess.
I got about 4 years ago. I got a text from one of my sister's new boyfriends. I've not even met the guy. Text me, "Hi, it's John," whatever his name was. Just want to let you know, I'm not a. I can't remember what words he used. I'm not a dickhead, and I just want your permission or your approval to date your sister. Straight away, red flag there.
Yeah, that is often a red flag. Anyone texting you, "I'm not a dickhead," definitely a dickhead. All right, just letting you know.
Yeah, and I want your permission. Not even know you. So I said, how can I give you you don't need my permission, but how could I give it not even knowing anything about you? Turned out to be a complete and utter waste of space. And I wish I had permission to share what happened with that gentleman, but put it this way, he's just been released from a sentence that he served.
Wow.
Because of what happened in that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, okay.
So
that, I mean, that sounds...
So going back to the book was because my sister stabbed her boyfriend. She didn't kill him. And I thought, fuck it, I've had enough. I've had enough of that, going through all that. And my sister's going to go to prison for stabbing this guy. And I've watched the whole journey. I've seen the lack of support as kids. My sister leaving home at 12, 13 to go into care because of beatings from my dad. And then going into a, hostel and all this crap. I thought she's going to go to prison. And I thought, enough's enough. I want the world to know what we've all experienced, but particularly her. So I thought, I'm going to tell the world what we've been through. And actually, the police dropped the charges. Yeah. So the need to write the book was gone. But through a chance meeting, if they are chance meetings, on a holiday in Spain, I met a guy that had written a book about his life, and I got the nudge to continue writing the book. So that was the reason.
Yeah. When I was researching, I come across an article. I don't know how true it is because I take everything I read with a pinch of salt. I'd rather ask you about one of your sisters. It might have been this sister wasn't happy about the book being written or something.
I can talk about that because it went into the public eye. That's Donna, my sister.
Right. Is that a different sister than the one you're referring to?
It is.
All right.
Donna, what can I say? She hated the fact that I'd bared my soul, and she went to town on me, and still goes to town on me all the time. Because
she was, I read it briefly, but it said something about that she disputed some of the things you said about your dad in the book. But she didn't say he wasn't an arsehole. I think it's something along the lines of he has redeeming qualities or something like that.
Yeah, and you know what?
It doesn't sound like you're not speaking about him in that way, though, to me. Do you know what I mean?
I agree.
Yeah. Which is exactly how you sat and spoke about him, really.
Actually, she never read the book.
Right.
Oh, right.
She'd not even read the book. Based on that, she went on Amazon and slagged the book down and everything. She'd not read the book, and I'll stop there as to her motives. All I know is I speak from the heart. I could have wrote a hell of a lot more in that book, and I decided not to, about other people as well. And I thought it was an accurate, balanced depiction of what my father did.
Well, there you go. Because she never actually took you to task on any detail in the article at all. So it wasn't like she said, well, he said this and he didn't do that. I think...
how dare he was there.
How do you feel about writing a book that some people might not want their story shared, like your dad, your sister? Did you just sort of take a bit of a leap and say, you know what it is, enough's enough? Or?
No. I Donna in particular, she hardly features in the book.
Right.
I didn't talk about her because I know what she's like. She's always been the same way. So, and I don't want this to get into a big thing about Donna, but she is how she is, and it didn't surprise me that she went to the media, and she's done some other things since. And let's just say I've had to just keep her at arm's length.
Yeah. I just brought that up not to try and be like, I've been doing my research.
No, it's absolutely fine.
If someone out there goes and researches it, I want you to have been able to answer that question when they were looking at it.
One question that they say there's 3 sides to every story. That your side, their side, and sort of the truth.
Right, okay.
And I'm not saying your version is not the truth, but I'm saying, can you appreciate what her wanting to be private or her not wanting it to be out there? Because you say you appreciate her side of it, and we haven't discussed this beforehand, so I'm only asking a follow-up question.
We literally don't talk.
We don't talk to each other because it's impossible to do a podcast afterwards. Can you appreciate everyone else's aspect of maybe not wanting to share a story, or is that something that you see?
I see it, and to some degree I can appreciate where she believes her story has been, I guess, publicised. That's what she's concerned about, although there's other motives as well. All I can say is, when I decided to write the book, my reasons for doing so were honourable, and I tried to do it sensitively. Bearing in mind that I went through life pretending that what really took place didn't happen. I'm talking about my mum here.
Yeah. So
I lived a lie, putting on a brave face, lying to girlfriends, not telling about it, and it consumed me. I remember coming out in red rashes when I just said something simple like I've been to the cinema, and I'd go red thinking I was lying because I was living a lie. So
that must have been nice. Like,
so all I can say is I tried to do it sensitively. I am appreciative that she may not have been happy with it, but I've got to live with the consequences of how that upset her, and I think for the greater good, I'm glad I did the book, including how I wrote about my father. And there's a bit of regret there, but I'm still believe I did the right thing.
It sounds a little bit like there's also obviously her own grieving process there, and her struggling to come to terms with maybe some of the details in the book, right, or some of the details of what it might bring up.
She wasn't the only one as well. On Mum's side of the family, some of them, have written me off. Washed their hands of me. And
how's that been as an experience for you?
It's been tough. Even my stepmum, who brought us up, I'm not welcome at her door anymore. There's been lots of backlash from me going public, and I think a lot of it is in their eyes anyway, the financial rewards I may have had because of their story.
That is quite a cynical way of looking at it from your family's perspective, though, isn't it?
Well, some of them have said to me, "Well, I don't want this to become a attack on the family."
No, I don't think it does sound that way either. Yeah.
No, I think we're having an honest, open discussion where we're putting questions to you that people might want answered, and maybe they would want answered. And I think you're answering very open and honestly, mate. So fair play.
Yeah, well, I guess because some of those people probably will never speak to me again. I think it's appropriate to say that's many of them will never speak to me again because I wrote that book, and I mean sadly one of them's no longer with us, but her words to me were any one of us could have made money from the death of your mum, so that's all that was her concern. Well, actually that book was my journey and how I went through life and how I dealt with it and my mistakes, and so that hurt to hear that.
Yeah. And
I've had other comments along the way. Do you know what? Even just yesterday on Facebook, I put a post on Facebook. So I've got my own page, and I've got almost like a fan page where you can have as many followers. And I put something on there because I was struggling to post on there. It was like sometimes I post it wouldn't. So I put a post on yesterday. This is just a test because I'm having a few problems putting things on Facebook, and the comment came back. It's because nobody wants to hear your bullshit.
Right.
So I looked at who this person was, and it's somebody from the estate that I grew up on. So I guess the reason I'm mentioning this is because it still goes on, that little chip away, and people don't want to see successful people. They want to find the cynics, they want to find the fault, and they don't want to see people
It's interesting
succeed.
For me personally, because I've thought about writing a book one day, and I've mentioned that I'd be interested because I've had a lot of ups and downs in my life before I've ended up doing this, and I thought about what it would be like to put and instantly all these questions come into your mind of, well, do I mention that? Do I mention this? And then will this upset that person? And I think if you do write a book, the only way to do it is to just give as much as you can and go all out. There's no point in writing a book and leaving out a lot of stories that because it may have this person and that person, and Otherwise, if you're gonna do that, then you may as well not do the book at all. You know, you either do it and do it properly and do the lot, or you don't do it at all. If I do one, I think that's the way I'll do it, to be honest.
The only thing I will say on that, I mostly agree with you, but what I will say is when I published my first book, it has to go through a legal reading almost. So every kind of, you know, what's the word, you know, contentious issue that could end up in court, they have to look. Right, if that ended up in court, what evidence have you got? Who will be a witness? So when you say write everything, you just, for a publisher, unless you go self-published, they will look at everything you write and say,
self-published then, I guess.
Yeah, but although you're still in the same, you still might end up in court. Should you write something that can't be proven and someone wants to defend it? So
I'll just make sure if I'm writing about someone that can't afford to sue us, I guess. But yeah, mate, it's an awkward one, and I think to be fair, you've done the right thing.
Yeah, and. What was the feeling like when you first decided to make a book? Who was the guy you met in Spain, by the way? Can you say?
Yeah, it was quite a... Well, he became famous in his time. Craig Shergold.
Right.
Craig Shergold. I was on a salsa holiday. Don't laugh, but I took up salsa.
I'm sorry.
This is the most northern thing ever that's happened.
Just imagining you giving it the...
Let me tell you, some of the best holidays I've ever had are those salsa holidays in Spain. And I'm afraid
there's a lot of girls out there.
Absolutely. And if there's any males watching this, one of the top tips I would give is take up salsa dancing. Let me tell you.
I'm not joking. Some people use it as a shortcut because it's a very easy way to get close to other people.
Rainbow rhythms.
I'm not saying that's the reason you did it.
Well,
I did used to DJ a salsa night in my local town.
Oh
my God.
It was. There's some funny stories from there.
That's for the next podcast, and it's just me.
It was a great story. Yeah,
right.
Some really good ones.
It was part of the salsa was the part of me wanting to change my circle of friends, but also, you know, being honest about it. The numbers thing. There's mostly women that go to salsa. Yeah. So you know, I'm a male of the species, and it was a good period of my life. How did we get onto that?
You got away to Craig.
We do that a lot, mate. Sorry about that.
Did he also go on a salsa?
No. We were on.
He was a normal person.
He was just attending with his mum.
Not the salsa holiday. Just to make this clear, yeah.
So we were on salsa holiday, about 200 people, and there's this guy who was around the pool in the afternoon. He had a big scar down his skull with a medallion round his neck, and I sometimes do it. I'll just speak to random people. I said, so he wasn't with our company. I went, come here, tell me a story. What's going on? So he said,
what's all this?
Yeah. Or words to that effect. He said,
what are you dressed as?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, he said, oh yeah, my name's Craig Shergold. I'm in the Guinness Book of Records. I mean, Google Craig Shergold. He was dying of cancer.
Right.
He was in hospital, and the only thing that put a smile on his face was when someone sent him a get well card. So his mum put this shout out, please send my son as many get well cards as you can. I think he's had 300 million. He's a proper...
300 million?
300 million. There's still this thing that goes on. Wow. Anyway, so he says, oh yeah, my mum wrote a book about my journey. Bearing in mind, I'd started to write a book and then stopped. I went, oh really? He said, and they're making a film out of it now. So I went, I know you. I said, I know that story about the get well cards. And by the way, the scar was, somebody in America heard about this guy with cancer dying, and they paid for this operation in America, and he survived. So he wrote a book, and it is a film, and you can get it on YouTube. So, and I thought that meeting was one of those chance meetings where somebody was placed in my path just to give me the nudge. I said, can I speak to your mum? Introduce me to the next day. And Marion Shergold introduced me to her the next day, and she's friends with the Craze and all sorts of East End of London woman. Wow. And I told her my story.
I'm imagining Peggy Mitchell now. Yeah. I'm just...
Yeah. Big larger than life character. And I said, what it is? I said, I started writing a book this year. I said, I've stopped. What is it? And I told her, and she went, Richard, you've got to write that book. And I just thought, she's right, I'm going to write that book. So I came away, continued writing it, and that's how it came about.
Wow.
So we've raced forward a little bit there from obviously you in your childhood and the struggles that you went through to writing the book. In between that, you said you went to prison and you joined the army.
You joined the army first.
Yeah, because I joined the army because so basically I grew up with low self-esteem. They're all better than me. All this stuff's going on inside. I'm not worthy. Is basically where I was at. Left school, fled the house to get away from my father at 16, and my first job, actually my first proper job, was ironing trousers in a factory. I thought, it's just a job, and I didn't go back to school for my exams, so I've got no qualifications. And then I did a job ironing trousers. That was washing plates in a hotel, so I was a kitchen porter full time. And I thought, there's got to be more to life than this. But can I just pause? When I was a teenager, I did delivering milk, delivering papers, and I remember getting a Saturday job at a butcher's,
That's so funny. I did a butcher's job on a weekend as well.
On a weekend, but do you know why it's really funny? I can remember the pride. They used to send me for the sandwiches at like 12 o'clock, 12:30. So with my apron on, I don't even have a badge, but I had an apron, and I'm walking. I thought, I'm like everybody else now. In fact, I work in a job in a shop, and that that little kid with low self-esteem. It was great. And
identity, sense of identity is massive, isn't it? For especially when you've been through something where people make you feel less than them. I kind of know what you mean, because on the weekend when I used to do my 6-7 hours or whatever in the butcher shop, at the end of the day I'd get my wages, but I'd also
tenner. What do you get?
I'd get 25 quid.
What?
Right? I mean, this wasn't that long ago. Yours was probably a bit longer.
He was better at negotiating at the time.
I mean,
he was a big lad. Yeah, he walks in. Yeah.
Even then, I was preparing for Coral. So anyway.
They said all the sausages you can eat for 25 quid, and he went, I think I'll go for the 25 quid. Yeah.
I actually did get a sausage roll every day as well. But at the end of the day, I remember he'd go, right, so what do you want for your Sunday dinner? Because it was on the Saturday, and I was like, I'll take beef or whatever. And I remember taking it home to my mum, single mother and that, and I was like, there you go, man, did my bit. And that really made us feel like a proper bloke at a young age. But yeah, sorry, mate.
So because I was going I just remembered that recently about the pride that I felt with that. So because I was like a kitchen porter, I thought, you know what it is? One of my mates wanted to join the army. When I was ironing trousers, it was Gary Reimer, give him a name check. He wanted to join the army. He was a few years older than me. So because he wanted to join, and I respected the guy, we went to join the army together. He couldn't get in because he had a criminal record for braying some landlord or something. He brayed me as well. I've got a scar. It went out drinking. I remember him battering me one night. And then so I was going to join on my own, but I got into trouble. I got drunk one night and I got bound over to keep the peace. So because I had that, I had to wait a year. Anyway, eventually I got into the army, to the Royal Artillery. I was gunner McCann, and I remember coming to London for the first time to Woolwich, and I loved it. I loved this because nobody knew about my past. Because as I grew up in school, and sometimes say to me, "Is it true about your mum being this prostitute?" And that's why I had that low self-esteem. So this was my opportunity to start again. They don't know, living the lie though, and I started that journey, and I kind of loved it. And finished my basic training, went out to Germany. It went pear-shaped because. So at 89 now, that year, Marshall Cavendish brought out a magazine series, which you might have come across it, the Murder Casebook series. It was about prolific murderers, and edition number 1 was Peter Sutcliffe. And I say Peter Sutcliffe, it was about the Yorkshire Ripper. The reason I paused there was this week, it was back in the news. It was up in the North East now, isn't it, Peter Sutcliffe? It was back in the news, and the journalist rang me, and she went, right, we've got another Ripper story. And I think, what? When will they understand that word is a description of how he killed his victims? Ripping and tearing the flesh. And a journalist, you think they'd have a bit of sensitivity. His name's Peter Sutcliffe, actually. Rather than saying it's a Ripper story, it's like it's no big deal to them. Do you know what? I didn't tell him. I should have said to her, can you call him by his name and have the awareness?
But it almost gives him, because it is quite. I imagine for him, it's almost a status thing as well. Like there's quite status.
I mean, serial killers in general, they have massive egos. I don't know. I've never watched an interview with the guy, but it wouldn't surprise us if that was the case. But for the journalist and for the other people when you were younger as well, when you were talking earlier, talking around you as if it was no big deal, and now the journalist saying, "Oh, we've got another," like. It just baffles me that people be that careless.
Well, how does it make you feel when you
I was angered but I thought... Well, she said to me, I can't tell you what it is, but I'm going to ring you back and tell you what it is. Will you come on the sofa? I said, do you know what? I'm just going to mind your expectations here. I probably won't do it because I've been interviewed to death about the subject, and I don't want to be kind of pigeonholed, and it upsets the family. But I thought if she rings back, I'm going to say to her, can you just... bear in mind what you're saying when you describe him in that way. His name's Peter Sutcliffe, and she didn't ring me back that day anyway. So I didn't get the opportunity to do it. I don't know how I got onto that. Yeah, I'm getting onto that because I call him by his name, Peter Sutcliffe.
But this was in the magazine.
And it was the Yorkshire Ripper basically on the cover, and it found its way back to Dortmund in Germany where I was. So one of my fellow gunners, Ian Wilson from Milton Keynes. I thought it was posh because we're from Milton Keynes.
You wouldn't think that nowadays.
Would I not? No, I wouldn't actually. I've been to Milton Keynes. You go around in circles, don't you?
Yeah.
He said, hey, this is you, isn't it? This is your mum. And because I was from Leeds, McCann, and it even mentions me and Sonia. He was trying to chat up my sister Sonia through being a pen pal. There's no internet then, so he knew it was me. And because my cover was blown, it was like I was back where I started, and not feeling as good as them. And being frank, I went out on a drunken rampage, and I remember getting blottoed. And I mean, this is
in Dortmund.
No, not in Dortmund, because we went out on a weekend exercise. Because I was a signaller, I was with like the officers.
Yeah.
And we went out for a drink on the Friday night before the exercise started on the Saturday. And I thought to myself, because I'm on the radios the next day, I better get back and get my head down. And I don't know what came over me. I went out into the open air, and when the air hit me, it like multiplied the drunkenness by 3.
It does, mate. Yes, that does happen.
And I just remember thinking to myself, because that anger was there, and I thought, I'm going to leave my mark on society like he left his mark on society, and have them all talking about it. And I went around this German village, and I smashed the fence here, and I'm damaging cars in garages, and nicked a motorbike, I'm kicking windmills down. And I remember thinking, they're all going to wake up in the morning and go, have them all talking in this little village like they were talking about Sutcliffe. Anyway, it all came out, and I got basically placed onto the psychiatric ward. And when it all came out, they went, basically, they discharged me. I am unfit for army service, they said.
And you must agree, I mean, at that point you probably weren't ready to, do whatever the army is supposed to do. Really.
Well, if you're going around acting like that, putting a gun in your hand isn't probably the best idea.
No, you're right. I wasn't. You're right, because I did started having fantasies about shooting them and all sorts.
But it seems like there's another layer to it for you, that you maybe did feel that it was the route for you, and you didn't get that.
I thought it was the route for me, but what I didn't realise, even though it was like 15 years later, is how it was still affecting me at a very deep level. And it needed dealing with. So you're probably right, the army life wasn't for me, so it was a good call. And I did think to myself, anyway, I'm back with my sister, and I moved back in with Sonia, and that was that. So that was at 89, and then, in fact, every cloud has its silver lining. Then my unit went to the first Gulf War, and I didn't go there. And you know what? I'm glad that I didn't go to the first Gulf War, because there's stories after stories of people that have been affected by chemicals and injections and all sorts of stuff that I was kept away from.
Yeah, it's a pretty shitty time for the army, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it still is. There's still lots going on out there for people that don't get the support once they leave. But that was the next phase to my journey, and I hit the club scene and drinking, and then eventually drugs.
Where did all this money come from? Where did the money come from for going out clubbing and sort of?
I mean, I got a job. I mean, I've always worked.
I've
always, even despite the low self-esteem, and even despite some of the mistakes that I've made, I've always grafted, because I've always thought, I've got to better myself. Right. Paper rounds, milk rounds, butchers, taxi firm. I've always worked. So when I came back from the forces, in fact, you know what? Before I got a job, a proper job, I remember working for a private detective agency. For £2.50 an hour, I'd sit and watch either women who the husbands didn't trust them, or people that were suspicious of employees, and I'd sit in my car. I got a little Mini for £400 on it, and I did that. And
what would you just writing down what they were doing, those sorts of things? Yeah, the movements, basically. Yeah. They went into this apartment at this time. Or
I went shopping at Friedman's or whatever it was.
It must have been quite an exciting. I suppose it
was boring.
Quite exciting to think, and then you sort of go, well, I'm just sitting in the car now watching someone's front door.
At £2.50 an hour.
Yeah,
make for a good YouTube series.
Yeah, I imagine someone.
Imagine vlogging that.
But I eventually got a job in a ladies' wear company in the warehouse. Best decision ever. Or best. No, do you know what?
You've begun to understand women in a different way.
Yeah. Oh, do you know what? Joking aside, I used to, because I was familiar with the term like bodysuits and other bits of knitwear, I'd use it as a chat-up line. And what fabric's that then? Is it 92% viscose, 8% elastane? And they go, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah. Anyway,
I know all about
you've got to try everything, haven't you?
Yeah. Clearly you have.
To be fair, it's better than the one of my pals does, where he takes his like BMW keys into the bar and he's like, just driving tonight.
And then most women go, oh, he's a hairdresser.
You could buy some BM keys, couldn't you?
I mean, I think that's what he was.
To be fair, my uncle actually for Christmas gave me despite the fact I've been in a 4-year relationship now, a Ferrari keyring to impress people. That was the one thing he gave me for Christmas.
With a Ford Fiesta.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But obviously, I don't want to get too much into the financials. But do families ever get anything after a family member's murdered or anything like that?
We didn't. And actually, the little story there. One of my aunties said to us as we were growing up, when you're 18, you'll get some compensation,
Yeah.
And when I became 18, I went to see, and there wasn't. And this hurt. What the solicitor said when he got back the decision, he said, the Criminal Injuries Board, or whatever it was called back then, they say, if there is no financial loss because of the death, you're not entitled to anything. So forget the pain, forget the hardship, forget the trauma, and how it's going to affect, because you're financially worse off because you lost your mum because she was on benefits.
And also the fact that you've worked since then, you haven't had to take time off of work.
No, we're talking I'm 18, so I would.
But what I'm saying is,
okay.
If you'd had to take 3 years off of work or 3 months, then maybe they could have argued that for you.
Yeah.
But it's sad, isn't it? That they don't.
The only value is the financial value.
Exactly. Like, it's unbelievable.
I do often wonder if that's still the case, whether they do sort of factor those.
Well, it's even got worse now, I think.
Really?
Having had some involvement with this arena, having supported families and stuff, we set up a support group. It's even worse now, and hardly anybody gets criminal injuries compensation.
Yeah.
It's cutbacks and everything. We were talking about. I want to go back to that working in a warehouse, because one of the things that when I speak, and it's one of the things I believe as well, is every job I've ever done, even ironing trousers, but stacking boxes, I've tried to impress. I've tried to shine. I've tried to think, right, how can I better myself here? And so I was stacking boxes, but I grafted, and that paid off for me because grafting, I got given an opportunity to run this computer system in the warehouse, which enabled me to get a pay rise, and eventually enabled me to buy my own house. So,
wow.
Which is why I went from, I don't even know the numbers, 10 grand a year, and with the overtime and the pay, I ended up having like 17 grand a year. So back then in 1990,
that was good.
Or 92, it was enough for me to put to get a mortgage. So I got my first house, and I was chuffed a bit.
Those are things that enable young people to get houses, which
you'll never have that.
You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that. You'll be renting for your entire life.
Yeah, we're all renting now.
Yeah.
It's what's happening.
Do you still? You can't get a house now.
No. If you're 18, you've got no chance of getting.
No, I was 24 by the time I got. By the time I got moved in, it was 24.
This generation, though, they're up shit creek, mate.
Yeah.
Do you still have that house, or do you still have?
I still have that house. In fact, I rent it. I've moved on from there, but I've still got the house, and just had a tenant leave, so I've got to sort it out.
It is a real pain in the arse trying to get.
Hey ho.
Yeah. Leeds property market. Leeds property market is actually all right because you've got loads of students. Surely.
Yeah, but not where I am. It's on the outskirts because I actually bought the house because when I first came out of the army, and I moved in with Sonia initially, I then got a flat. And I was like, I remember getting me a flat, my own place, and what I didn't realise was right in the middle of like a crime hotspot. I was like, I think I was the only person that worked in this block of flats, and I kept getting burgled and that.
They're waiting for him going to work at 9 a.m. going, thank God for that. He's off to work hard to get more money to buy more stuff.
What an idiot!
So we can fucking
take that VCR.
Do you know what? Yeah, VCR. I once got my car pinched. Oh, do you know what I had?
He's got so many stories.
Vauxhalls. They pinched my car from outside because I was near a pub. They pinched my car, and I found my car like 3 blocks away just to go home.
Just go
Vauxhall Cavalier. Do you remember those?
Lovely cars. They were actually quite nice cars.
They were quick, weren't they?
Yeah. I don't remember the speed.
I think
it was about 5.
Paid 250 quid for it. So because I got burgled so often, I thought I've got to do something, and I moved to the outskirts of Leeds, and I got this little place, but it's a little village, and you know what? If you're not from that village, it was very cliquey. And some people talk to you, but the lads my age, they had their own little scene. I wasn't part of that scene. In fact, I got this memory one day, Boxing Day. You believe in karma?
I don't, because I've seen a lot of arseholes do really well in life, but I think occasionally it can happen. Yeah.
It was Boxing Day. I was in the bookies, and I saw 50 quid. I saw some money on the floor. The guy who stood on it, and I thought, I'm having that. So I picked it up, put it in my pocket, and walked out. But then I thought, have I done the right thing? It might have been his. Should I have asked him? They'd have said yes anyway. So I rang up my sister. I said, Sonia, I'm not sure if I've done the right thing here. I found 50 quid in the bucket. She went, it was his, you better give it to him. I went, oh no, it might not be. And I went home that night to my new house, Boxing Day. And that night, because the house was beside a pub, one of the local lads came out, and he basically picked up a tin of paint and just smashed it through the front window. This is what I mean about the locals not accepting me. I wasn't one of them. And But do you know how much the excess was to get the window? It was 50 quid. It was 50 bloody quid.
Are you local?
The thing is, you don't know. You might have never picked up the 50 quid, and you tell the story differently because you'd still have smashed the paint through the window, and you'd have just been 50 quid down.
What's interesting about that individual, who was a Leeds fan in particular, incidentally, and I saw him just a few weeks ago going through Leeds with one of his big mates, and I'm there in my Range Rover, and obviously I've moved on a little bit since then, and he went, oh, look what it is. He forgot. What he forgets is I was looking out my bedroom window. I wasn't pissed like he was, and I saw him do it. And so he's like, "Oh, hi," and I went, "Yeah," just nodded, and he walked off. And,
reinforced. Drive away.
Yeah. Anyway, so where were we? So things were starting to go well.
Yeah.
Bought my house, despite the idiots that lived around there. But around this time, I got involved in drugs.
Was that the rave scene by any chance?
The rave scene.
Was it?
Was it really the rave scene?
I've never been to a rave. Actually, I have been to a rave. I've danced on the beach at Cleethorpes.
We've had a lot of guests who
no one's ever said that before, by the way.
We've had a lot of guests around your age who got into the music. And
genuinely, I don't think there are gateway drugs. I think there's gateway raves. And then every drug story goes from there, back in the early 90s. Because everyone got into drugs at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I got into it, and I was the most anti-drugs, drinking. I mean, I did drink. But I foolishly took a rapper speed off one of my mates in the warehouse, and I took it, and I could not believe it. It was, I was like, wow! It was just like took over my body. It's like bloody hell, best dancer on the planet, chatting girls up all night. It was, I speak about this. It was something that I found irresistible. For a number, yeah, absolutely. What he didn't tell me is how that after the drugs wore off, we cried my eyes out. They come down, and ended up in hospital one night.
Yeah, the come downs aren't worth it, are they?
I've never done speed. I'm quite used to it. Yeah, I've never done speed.
My dad was banging to speed, and
was it?
Oh yeah. Well, my dad's tried
through the week.
My dad's had everything you can try, basically, but speed was one that he particularly enjoyed more than the rest. Wrecks your teeth, but it's
teeth are pretty good.
But yeah, he said he loved it. It made him really concentrated and productive and happy, and
some people do.
But there is a price to pay. You know, there is a price to pay for all that.
But so you felt like you were chatting all the lasses up and you were having a great time.
I had this confidence that I'd not felt before, and I became a little bit of I won't say I was a celebrity, but it was because it was so appealing, and I stood out a little bit. I started wearing tartan suits and tartan top hats. I got a tartan kilt of like John Paul Gaultier. Honestly,
tartan fucking toilet paper.
To be fair, if you're going to embrace the red hair, then you're going down the right route.
Oh man, it's full blown.
Yeah.
But so you had the thing is, the guy we had on, I'm thinking specifically about England's Wolf of Wall Street podcast that we did with.
We started following last night on. I forgot his name, but.
Yeah.
The book, yeah.
He said
ecstasy guy.
He had it.
That's what some people still call him.
I need to bring it up now because I feel bad because we forgot his name. Right there.
Atwood.
Sean Atwood.
Come on.
Right. Sean Atwood.
Just go for the wait because you didn't have your phone.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
He said he had a similar lack of confidence, I suppose, like what you're referring to. When once you have this drug, it almost inserts that into you and you're supercharged.
Yeah.
But obviously it's false, and did that lead you down a bad road then?
It did, and I started dealing drugs basically. I was involved in it, not in the same level that Sean was doing, but I was dealing drugs. In fact, I started promoting in clubs and didn't make a lot of money out of that, but it paid for my weekend. I ended up losing my job, and I eventually got.
Did you lose your job for any reason in particular, or can you remember?
I have to say that a lot of people got made redundant at the place of work, and I got kept on by Stuart. I must reconnect with Stuart, the warehouse manager that gave me this start. He was like a dad to me, and but he kept me on. But eventually, I had to go, and probably influenced his decision. The fact that I was, it wasn't stupid.
So do you now look back, so how did you end up going to prison? Was this the start of that road, would you say?
well, the going to prison was the end of that road. That was the end of my drug taking journey, which lasted about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years.
So how did you get from the first time you took speed to getting locked up?
Yeah, why did I start dealing drugs? Well, when you're taking them every weekend, you know, you're going out with your mates, somebody has to buy them. And I thought, right, do you know what? We need 20 pills. I'll get the 20 pills. And
add a couple of quid on each one. That's how it starts, lad.
And then, and really, it didn't get much bigger than that. But in the student, when you start, there's a lot of students in the club scene in Leeds, and we were the locals. So I ended up buying 50, and then it was like 100. Name
gets around.
Yeah,
he's the one.
Quite alluring.
If you need out.
But what's
the guy with the tartan?
I'm not. Yeah,
the tartan hat.
Yeah.
You kind of miss him.
Yeah.
If the coppers want to know, just look for the lad wearing tartan.
Actually, I think a copper did approach me once in a nightclub, but you could tell by his shoes that they weren't clubbers, you know. Anyway,
these big boots.
Yeah.
They're really.
And the police uniform.
They're really shit at that, aren't they? Yeah.
You know, after I came out of prison, I once dated a WPC, and it was really kind of strange. But then she did a check on me, and she obviously,
which she isn't allowed to do, I don't think, by law.
I believe so, but I'm not going to hold any grudges.
I suppose, yeah, it's difficult to dispute that after she's found out.
Was there a little bit of a dynamic there where you're like, I'm getting, I got fucked, but now I'm doing the fucking.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't use language like that.
Yeah,
but it was a bit interesting.
You're getting your own back.
How did I go from that? Well, yeah. So I started taking drugs. But what's interesting, is that the right word? Is I stopped dealing the drugs because, you know, I did a bit of. So I lost my job. Then I did a bit of promoting in clubs, and I thought, you know, listen, I've got to get back on the straight and narrow here. So I stopped going out. But a police informer basically set me up and said, we'd like. In fact, I said 100 pills, didn't I? I was getting like 20, 30, 40, 50. When he came around and said, we want 100 pills. Him and his dad was known. Why didn't I listen to people? His dad was just come out of prison and was a very serious player. He used to supply Northern Ireland drugs in a big way. And they came to my house. I remember coming to me, and I thought, I'd never met his dad, but his dad was there. And he came in, big gangster type, and he went, right, so we want 100 pills. I went, I'm not getting involved in that. So I'll put you in touch with the guy. And he went, no, not just yet. We'll come back to you in a few weeks. So I'm back working, and I say, when I'm speaking, I get an hour to share my stuff, and I don't give the detail.
Oh, that's cool, mate.
So this is the detail is, his son then comes round about 3-4 weeks later. So right, we'll have those 100 pills. And you know what? I should have referred them on, because I knew instinct told me I'm getting set up here, but I didn't. And I just thought, I can't be bothered, so I'll just get them and do it, and then that's it.
And also, if you're facing some intimidating bloke, you're just going to sort of try and make things go with the flow.
What was interesting was he said, I want 125 pills, but I'll have 25 on the Thursday, and then I'll have the 100 on the Friday. So I met him on why didn't I realise? Because if he wanted them, just take them off me on the Thursday. So I met him on the Thursday night. It took the 25 were for him for personal use.
You're joking?
Absolutely.
And the 100 were for the setup. For
the setup. So then the next day on the Friday, I get home from work, rings me and says, I'll have them now. And my stomach's churning. I'd heard him out in on the country lane, and I walks out of my house, and this guy, remember it's a village, this guy walks past. I thought, he's not from around here. In a big bulging coat. He obviously had a camera. And I even got in my car.
Because in those days they didn't have the tiny iPhone cameras, so he's walking around like with a ghetto blaster on it, but it's got like a strange lens sticking out of it. Just listen to me music. He's getting in the car.
Not even on.
Why is he pointing his ghetto blaster at us?
That is. The police. Genuinely, you're a bad criminal, but the police in your local area sound genuinely dog shit. Like genuinely terrible police. And you guys walking into the local bars with their boots on, their hats still on, but.
So anyway, I drive into Leeds city centre to apparently meet this guy at the coach station. And I go into a bus lane and pull me over.
It's him and the tartan. It's him and the tartan. Get him.
In my Ford Orion gear, I recall. My grey Ford Orion gear.
Now, Fords were the coolest cars back at that. Like, Fords were the cars to have at that time, right?
With alloys, which the car got pinched actually.
You had style, mate.
Credit. Always stealing from you.
I've never known a guy robbed so much in my life.
Cheers.
You genuinely have had more stolen than I've ever heard.
I get after hearing your story, I get the feeling. Every time he goes to the shop, he just chucks the keys on the ground. Well, I'll not believe these anymore because by the time I get back, this won't be here.
You had a lot of cars in your time.
I've had a few cars though.
Yeah.
Oh, what a fucking... Mate, your story.
My first car was a Mini and I crashed it. You know, I'm embarrassed to say this, but we're being honest here. I was drink driving. I was 18 and I got pissed out of my head and I drove the bloody car. What on earth? I don't even know how I got home, but I must have curbed it and it span it round and all the bottom fell out and I had to scrap the car. But I made some silly mistakes.
So... ultimately, you got to a stage where you made the ultimate mistake, and was this how you got locked up?
I got arrested for that.
And
sent to prison.
Was it long that you got sentenced to?
I got a year.
Yeah.
So actually, when it happened, I thought I've got off lightly here.
And how did you find being locked up in general? Because I suppose you've been through bad things already in your life. Did it feel like?
There was parts of it that were horrific, but it wasn't that bad. And you know what? And sometimes I'll do this when something is put in front of me, prison or an opportunity or something that scares me. I just think about my mum. I think it can't be as bad as losing your mum. So I just have to wear a different hat, go in there, and it could have been worse. I could have got shipped out. I got a job on the hospital wing.
I think it's interesting what you just said there, though. Is once again we're talking about perspective at the start. It's how you deal with what you're put through, and if someone does go through something bad and they overcome that, it's great to draw from that and have that strength and say whatever you're faced with, whether it's speaking in front of thousands of people or all these different things that you've been through since then, you've been through worse.
Yeah.
So you gain confidence from that. I think that's great that you have that attitude.
When you said it was horrific, though, what
happened?
Well, I found a guy that hung himself. That was a shocking part. That was a shocking thing to see, and I was faced with a guy that wanted to kill me.
For what reason?
You're not going to believe this. I mean, Leeds.
He'd stolen your car.
It's related to the car.
Oh my God.
I mean, Leeds City
Stop buying cars.
Leeds City Centre. Going out on a weekend, I've got a DJ in the back and we're going to one of these club nights that I was promoting, and I just nudged the car by accident and I pull over to just swap details and this guy jumps out, baseball bat, get the baseball. I thought, this is going to get nasty, this. And police just coincidentally just drive past as so I wave them down. I didn't have any insurance details, it turns out, and he
got locked up.
He did get locked up. He got a life sentence for murdering a guy in Leeds.
Right.
Outside, not far from where I live. He dragged a Polish guy out of his car to pinch his car and drove off with him and killed him. And that's what he got sentenced for. So
they've been on the lookout for him, and you'd...
Well, I don't know if it... I don't know the sequence of events. Mm-hmm. All I know is he did that, he got arrested for it, he got a life sentence whilst I'm in there. So I'm on the hospital wing of the prison. He just gets life sentence, and when you get a life sentence they put you in a cell on the hospital wing, gather your thoughts. And anyway, so I'm going to give this guy his dinner. No way. And then he recognises me from the guy that pulled him over for the insurance thing. He went, I'm gonna kill you. It was like, Jesus. And he'd slashed the guy inside, cut his face up, and it was a scary time. But obviously a lot of the guys just kept me away from him, and he was locked up in a cell anyway. I'm up and down the corridors. Whew.
Did people because at that point in your life, did people know, so for instance, did you say to other people what your experiences have been? Did you share with anyone in prison that your mum passed away in that way?
I became part of what was the hospital wing cleaner team. There's 6 of us, and we were in a 6-man cell. And it all came out, and they did know. And they were sympathetic, and so that's why I'm saying they looked after me.
Yeah. Because there is a bit of a hierarchy in prison. If you have suffered, not that I know this, but from what I've read, if you have suffered from a crime like murder or something like that, then other prisoners will almost not be lighter on you, but there is a bit more respect for your situation. Do you know what I mean?
There is. And funny enough, since I've become a speaker, I've gone into many, many prisons, speaking to inmates, inspiring them, getting them to think differently about not just their own journey and what they might do in the future, but about their actions. I remember speaking at Grendon, I think it's Grendon Underwood, or Grendon anyway, prison, and I remember 70% of the inmates were murderers. They'd committed murder, and it's a bloody tense one. But because I've going back to your point about that respect, because I'd lost my mum to, in particular Peter Sutcliffe was quite a high profile thing, that I had the respect, so they listened to me.
And you'd also been in prison yourself.
And that's always like a joker up my sleeve. When that all comes out, all of a sudden it's like, and basically I got through to them. And I remember getting a letter from somebody within the member of staff saying there's an individual that's murdered somebody, I don't know the detail, and had never faced up to what he'd done and the consequences and the impact. And after hearing me share my story, he then wanted to start working on himself and what he did. And that was just really nice to hear that having shared my stuff, it was helping him.
What was that like, walking into a room full of people that you knew were similar to the person that essentially changed your life?
It was tough. It was hard, but I knew I was safe. I knew I was going to be looked after.
It makes me contemplate just the reasons why people do such horrible things, and you're then walking into, a snake pit full of people who, some might have done it out of rage, some might have been like sick and twisted and premeditated, but regardless, they've all committed the same horrible act, and it just makes you wonder why anyone would do these sort of things.
Quite desperate.
I guess there's lots of different reasons. There's lots of different sets of circumstances. A lot of it was revenge, and some of it was drugs, and there's all sorts of reasons why they were in there. And you know what I think? If me sharing my stuff to them just helps them, because eventually most of them will get out, think about what they do. It might stop them, lashing out, whatever, in the future, and that's a positive thing.
Then how? And tell me if I've asked a question too far here. How do you now feel towards Peter Sutcliffe, and how's your journey of your emotions towards him gone?
Interesting question. They've fluctuated, and I can remember me and my sister Sonia when I came out of the army and I moved back in with her initially, we concocted a plan because when she left home at 12-13, she discovered that mum and dad weren't married when she was born. She changed her name to my mum's name, so she wasn't Sonia McCann, she was Sonia Newlands. So what we decided she was going to do is she was going to start writing to Peter Sutcliffe as a pen pal. He had all these pen pals, and she was going to befriend him, and then eventually she was going to go in and visit him and basically try and kill him.
Right.
So, and that is what we felt. That's full of anger.
As raw as it gets. Yeah.
I mean, between the two of you cooked that up, or how was that sort of? Where does the nucleus of that idea start? Did she come to you and say, "I want him"? Like, how does that start between two? Because you say you're quite close. You're almost, you are almost, soulmates.
Soulmates.
Yeah.
Well, you're talking 25 years ago, so I can't remember who initiated.
Yeah.
And it's probably in some drunken or drugged state where we thought we'd get revenge. So I can't really be sure about who. I think it may have been her that instigated that, knowing that she really was angry about what had happened, and she was the older one. She was a year older than me. She was like the second mum. Our mum would sometimes leave us.
Do you think she was angrier than you were?
I'm not sure if she was angrier.
I don't know if that's the right word.
Maybe more motivated.
What I do know is she was affected more in a negative way by what we'd all been through. What I haven't shared, his mum's boyfriend, after Dad left, he abused Sonia, which she kept to herself. And then when she told me, in writing the book and sitting down and having this heart to heart, she disclosed this to me, and it just explained everything about her turbulent life, about the way that she behaved and conducted herself, and violent men and depression, all that. It all just made sense, and it just broke my heart to hear that.
And so you two concocted this plan, which obviously never got off the ground.
No. So that's where we were with regards to feelings about him.
And that, I imagine, there is also something quite empowering about knowing that you could do that back to him, or sort of do something to him.
I wouldn't say that now.
No,
but at the time
it felt that way.
It felt that way because we had no acknowledgement. Well, no acknowledgement through even the family that what we went through was horrific. I know that they probably knew that, but we weren't getting the support or the counselling or so. And through society, it felt like we were abandoned. It was like, oh, forget it. I know that they weren't forgetting about Peter Sutcliffe because it was always in the news, but as far as we were concerned, as the children of my mum, no one was interested in us. So I guess it was like that revenge thing, wasn't it? And getting some acknowledgement. I don't know, it's all a bit messed up, really.
It's true though, because now you mention it, it is almost like it's written from the bad guy's perspective. The headlines, they're always about the bad guy. It's never about the innocent victims of this person, you know what I mean? Like, after, obviously the headline will read about the victim, but the victim's families who've got to live with that for the rest of their lives. You know, you're supposed to just go along about your merry way now.
Well, it's like that journalist sort of starting the phone call. We got another Ripper story.
Yeah.
So like, that's, again, it's not from your perspective.
No.
And it's an incredibly insensitive way to approach anyone who's gone.
A lot of journalists are like that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've had calls at 1:45. You know, it was a Daily Mirror. I might be wrong on that one. You know, he's had an heart attack, he's going to die, what do you think? I'm asleep, you're waking me up.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm partly to blame for that, because when my book came out 12-13 years ago, obviously we had publicity and interaction with the media, so
you're still on that.
I'm still, I mean,
someone goes, we've got him on a file somewhere.
Well, I'm on a file, I get it all the time, and this guy said he's had a heart attack, what do you think? And I thought, oh. And I didn't give him the answer he was expecting, because I said, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that, because he's got family and he's a human being and he's going to die. So that's what I said. They didn't put that in the papers. So what I'm saying there is that my thoughts about him have changed in the years that I've had to think about what he did and you know, live my life.
And how have they changed? Has that been mostly down to you, or have you sought counselling? Or
well, I've sought counselling over the years, but that was mainly to do with my failed relationships, because I'd always ruin them.
Right.
I always pushed people away, because even though I had lots of relationships, because I was almost addicted to getting into a relationship and just feeling loved and worthy, I'd normally push them away, because really deep down I didn't feel good enough because of all that shit. You know. Like I was trying to live a lie. So
you're looking for the answer, which is the new girlfriend, but really the real answer is in you.
Yeah.
That's the real issue that you're looking for.
So that's why I went for the counselling. And that was, I can't remember what years that were. But anyways, 15, 20 years ago. And yeah. The change in respect of Peter Sutcliffe, it was related to the going into prisons. Mainly when I have gone into prisons, it was through the Forgiveness Project. I don't know if you're aware of you probably won't be aware of the Forgiveness Project, but what this project is it's just a collection of stories of people that have been harmed, wronged in some way, and then the victim would then give their opinion on forgiveness, one way or another. So I had an interesting story, and I became one of their stories, and they would take a storyteller into prison, share their story, and then I would go, and then they'd spend 3 days with the inmates looking at their journey.
Wow. As
part of that, and incidentally I'd not forgiven him, but as part of that involvement, I was invited to London in 2010 to their first inaugural lecture by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and he spoke about forgiveness, and it was that day that I decided I was no longer going to feel anger towards him. I would just let it go, and you know, my interpretation of forgiveness is what I did that day. And I'm not resentful, I'm not angry, and when I got a call to say that he's dying, what do you think? It's why I was able to say, well, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm genuinely sorry to hear that. And when they said he was going back into prison up in the northeast, what do you think about that? Well, I went, okay, I'm not going to celebrate that. It doesn't change anything. So if that's what the authorities have decided, then that's it.
You've let it go, so to speak, as close as you can.
As close as I can, yeah. And
to feel nothing rather than anything.
Correct.
Because part of it is, I'd imagine, or I mean, I don't really know about the mindset of a killer, but that power that they have over other people to make them feel that way, and the influence of being able to do that to someone else. So the forgiveness is ultimately sort of taking the power away from him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's all they have left, isn't it? When they're locked in a cell, they can't carry on killing. So the only sick and twisted thing they've got left is that.
How did you feel about people writing letters to him, or his status as not a sex symbol, but sort of a symbol to some women? Because that must be quite difficult.
That did anger me.
Yeah.
Over the years, and I've not heard anything recently, but I remember back in 2005, there was a woman apparently going to marry him.
Yeah.
I remember it, and in fact we were making a BBC documentary at the time, and it's one of the things that we spoke about on this thing. That's why I remember it, and I was thinking, for goodness sake, you're going to marry him? That's how I felt at the time.
Yeah.
Do you not understand what he did? And anyway,
It's funny.
She didn't marry him.
You get a lot of sick idiots like that though as well. Like, we had a guy who'd done 20 odd years on death row on this show. Now, as happened, he was an innocent man, but he said you'd get letters all the time just for being on death row. Like, you know, there are all women out there who are attracted to that for some strange reason. It's bizarre.
That I find bizarre.
Strange.
They
make TV shows called Death Row Housewives and shit like this, man. It's mental.
It's the commodification of that, though, and that maybe it's also really unfortunate for you that you went through this. Maybe it's fortunate because of where you've ended up, but it is unfortunate, or a byproduct of the modern media, that there isn't really any escape 100% away from a front page of that, or you turning on BBC News and them saying an update on, or because you can't, it's not that you can just mute those specific things, and because it's everywhere, you can't really ever 100% step away from that.
No, and I accept that now. It's just part of my journey, it's part of who I am, and going back to how I felt as a kid, I felt like I was in some kind of film. That's how it still feels. It feels surreal. What's strange about it is I'm just like you, I'm just a normal guy.
Yeah.
And I still pinch myself thinking, I'm right in the middle of this. I suppose it's this week because the media have been on to me again.
How do you feel about? Do you still talk to the media about that sort of thing?
Well, I do, and I did. They invited me onto the ITV, and I said no. But then I made the way of the world now. I made a Twitter video on Periscope.
Did they just put that
at 10 to 6, 20 past 6? It was on my local news.
Yeah.
Goodness me. I don't have a problem with that because I guess I was giving them what they wanted without me having to go into the TV station. But my point on that one was because what the story was he'd been asked by the ITV, did you kill any men or did you attack any men? One of which I've met one of the guys that survived, and his response, and this is the thing that he wanted a reaction from me on, was he wrote, yes, I did some bad things, but I didn't kill any men. I want you to know that. So they were saying to me, he said, they did some bad things, what do you think about that? And I said, you know what? Yeah. That's the first time that we've had any acknowledgement from him that what he did was wrong and bad, and it wasn't like voices from God. It was a bad thing. So I think that's a step forward, and I welcome him acknowledging that. So for the public or the media to expect him to say what I did was horrific and it's not going to happen. Well, because this guy's a guy with no empathy.
People who commit these crimes in the first place are so cold and they've got nothing in their heart that they'll never be able to fully repent for it, because there's nothing there to draw from to do that, in my opinion.
No, I think you're spot on. And I accept that now. So when he writes that, I think fine, from him, that's a good thing.
Do you sort of believe in that he isn't a good person? Is that the way that you see him, or how do you see him as a person? Because I'm often quite troubled by hearing, that someone's good or someone's bad, because I also think that sometimes that can draw people towards living that sort of lifestyle. They think, I want to be a bad person, that's going to be my identity.
I think what he did was wrong. I think what he did was bad, horrific, but I think the guy's ill. Yeah. Not ill as in going to hospital. I think the guy is just not mentally ill. He's mentally in some to some degree. I remember reading something about the police when they interviewed him, and the times they let him go 9 times, didn't they? If you remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, and I remember reading something about his eyes being black and like almost like soulless, because there's something about him that's just not the same as you or I.
Do you believe that stuff, or do you? And I'm not saying your experience is any less, because I don't know anything, virtually know nothing about it. Do you believe that stuff, or do you think there is a sort of in the same way with terrorists, where they go, well, you could always see it, or do you actually believe that he sort of was a bad person? And you can stop me at any time.
Bad or ill. I know people say, is it bad or ill? I think it's all the same thing. The illness made him do bad things.
How much do you know about him now? And is it stuff you want to know, and do you go out of your way to find that stuff out?
Not anymore.
Yeah.
I did meet his doctor. I met one of his doctors who, because I did write to Peter Sutcliffe over the years. I've written to him twice. One, because when a book first came out, I wanted to meet the guy, and I wanted answers. I wanted to know why you did what you did, and I think that was naive, knowing what I know now, because he ain't going to tell you. In fact, it'd probably do some damage if I met the guy.
If anything, he enjoys that side of that power. Yeah.
But then when I forgave him, I'm his mate. I'm not his mate, by the way. I'm on about when I let that anger go. I did consider whether or not I wanted to let him know that, because I thought maybe there's a slight advantage to let him know that I'm not angry at what he did.
There's a slight sort of checkmate feeling there, isn't there?
No, not checkmate. Right, the situation is what it is. I.e., he's in prison. I've lost my mum, and I'm getting on with my life. That's it. But if you look at the whole situation, I just thought to myself, if I've let it go, if I can tell him, and he appreciates that, and maybe I was naive, maybe there's an advantage to that. Maybe there's an advantage. I know it's for him, not me, but maybe that's the thing I should be doing then, letting him know.
Like the greater good sort of thing.
Yeah, the greater good. And
the fact that your mind can even take you to that place, mate, speaks volumes about the type of person that you are, because I don't think many people would be able to go from the level that you went from and the pain that you were in to even contemplate that. So the fact that you can even think about letting him know that says a lot about you. So I think you don't even need to go there. Do you know what I'm saying? In my opinion, anyway. One thing I do think is potentially a good thing is if this was ever going to happen to you, I don't know, you let me know if I'm right or wrong in thinking this, but to have it happen at such a young age might have been better than being a 13, 14 or 18 year old.
Absolutely. Because I didn't really appreciate the detail of what had gone on, and had I been a bit older, that might have affected me.
It's amazing how kids can recover from things as well, and looking at you now, you've done a good job of that.
Did you
thank you.
When did you look into it? Like, at what point did you because there's almost a human curiosity there, isn't there, of why things are the way they are and what happened?
Yeah,
when did you go through that?
Over the years, I know maybe 20 years ago when there's a lot of books written about him, I did look into his circumstances and what might have happened that would bring him to that point.
Yeah.
And there are some things, and I'm not making excuses for him, but there are some things that happen in his life that you can see, oh yeah, that probably did influence him there.
Like the dominoes that you look for.
Yeah. Like he did go, or attempt to go with a prostitute, and I think he couldn't get an erection, and she teased him and bullied him when he was young. That happened. So then that's a seed planting for this anger. And I know it's wrong, but you can see that, oh yeah, and then he idolised his mum, who apparently was trying to be unfaithful with a friend of his dad's or something, and then the dad set them up. The dad went and sat and waited for the mum to arrive at this pub and brought the kids with him. So, there's some messy things that happened that damaged him.
You think to yourself, though, in my opinion, with sick and twisted people, they're always going to lash out at someone. It's just sometimes this life event that makes it this particular kind of person. Like, I don't know, there's people out there who want to kill a lot of people for skin colour or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Because they've had one bad experience or whatever. But we can't. It doesn't make it excusable to do something so disgusting.
No, it doesn't. But I'm just kicking this about now and thinking about this. But maybe Richard 20 years ago was looking for reasons behind what he did. So it can't be possible that it was just completely bad, because that's harder to accept. If there's some kind of reasons that led up to it, well, no, that's a bit easier to. You
want to make sense of it all.
Yeah,
I think that
to accept.
There is also a big problem with the fact that it feels like such a rare thing, and I actually think murder is a bit more common maybe than people realise, because we sensationalise a lot around murder, and maybe we just remember one or two things because the media cover it in a certain way that makes them exceptional people. And from hearing your story and actually hearing how often you sort of thought about maybe having a gun and killing other people or planning to go and do something to him, there's a very fine line in your life very often where you could have gone the other route.
Absolutely. And
how unexceptional that actually makes a murderer or someone who can kill. They are different, but there's a very fine line between the two.
There is. And what I haven't said is when I was growing up, before he was caught, I was having fantasies about going killing men.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I'll do, I'll go run down men. I will go attack men. That's what I thought about as a kid. That was because I had all this anger inside. So there is and you know what? I could have done that.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I'm reading a book by Marion Partington. Now, Marion's sister was killed by Fred West, or the Wests.
Right.
And she was able to find forgiveness. I met her, actually. And she said when she realised that she had the capacity to murder herself because of the rage that she felt, she then realised that she could find it within her to let it go as well. And we all have the capacity. You talked about you being a big guy, and you know you got to watch how you might lash out. I watched something yesterday. I don't know why I clicked on it. It was on a news channel. It was a Russian guy that had taken a flying kick against a wrestler. They got into an argument over whose sport was better, and killed him. So we've all got that potential we're talking extremes here.
But I understand what you mean, because to understand something is to be able to accept and like move forward.
There's that empathy level of it though as well. I think that, or maybe not empathy, but that sort of, some people have, or maybe go on that journey to get to the point where they feel empathetic.
To me, when you talk about good and bad people, I think it's like a spectrum. I think you know there is one extreme and another, and a lot of people fall in the middle or whatever. But I think when it comes to people who do these acts, I don't really feel like they're on there. I feel like there's like you say, like there's sick and twisted people who don't understand what they're doing is right or wrong, or it's just what they want to do, you know. And I don't think that they're aware of this is good, this is bad,
and the impact.
No, and that's why there's no empathy. Personally, that's the way I view them anyway. But yeah,
you know, you got me thinking about things here. Do you know, like going through life, the jobs that I've had, I've always tried to be the best because that's good for me, because I might get a promotion. I think there's a similar thing going on here, because if I'm angry about what he did, and that's understandable, and it's a natural thing as well, but if I can find empathy or forgiveness, that's good for me.
Yeah.
And I think I've taken a lot, and I'm nearly 50, aren't I? I've taken a long time to come to that understanding, but letting things go, forgiveness, it's not how you might think it. It's like, right, I forgive you. I mean, that can be a level of forgiveness, putting my arm around you, let's shake. No, for me, it's about letting it go, not letting that person dictate how I feel about life and about what you've done. Do you know what? It's done now. Let it go. I'm moving on. I've got my own family now, which I have. I've got a beautiful thing that happened a few months ago. My son, my little boy, turned. I mean, they're aware of what took place with their grandma, and we speak about it quite often. And he's also aware, I want them to be aware of the forgiveness side of it, because it's been a big part of my journey. And I was speaking for West Yorkshire Police about 3 months ago, and I said, "Oh son, I'm speaking for West Yorkshire Police tomorrow, that'll be interesting." He goes, "Why?" Of course it was in
How old is your son?
He's 9.
Right.
So I said, well, it was West Yorkshire Police that were looking for him, because there's different police forces.
Right,
right.
yeah.
And he turned around and he stopped me in my tracks. He says, "Dad, you know what?" He says, "I think I forgive him, my son." I says, "Why?" He says, "Well, he might have had a bad childhood." He said he might have had his mum killed.
Yeah.
I said, "Well, actually, he didn't have his mum killed." I said, "But that's a beautiful thing to say." You know, for my kids to have that understanding about the power of forgiveness and letting things go, I think that's just a beautiful thing.
How often are you asked? Sorry, do you have a really?
No, I just I empathise with what you're saying, because I had a lot of anger towards a person once in my life, and I did contemplate going to talk to them about it, because I thought, this is fucking eating me alive. Yeah.
Just a chat.
Yeah, and just to say, and just to try and sort it out, although they didn't deserve that. But I just thought, this is gonna fucking take over me, because I actually wanted to like beat the fuck out of someone at one point, like to the point of, I guess, kill them. Like, you know, like I hated them that much. Like, if you told me they'd been hit by a bus, I would have been like, oh, fucking great. Made my fucking day that. Like, I would have been like that. And I thought, this isn't healthy. So I did think about going to, but eventually I came to my own conclusion of, that's actually not, they don't deserve that, and it wouldn't be understood or reciprocated from their end. So it's not going to benefit me to go there and try and do that. But letting it go, I don't know if I'd say forgiveness, but letting it go is a really healthy thing for everyone to do. Like, because holding on to anger and that, it really doesn't help your life. And ultimately, we all want to have a good fucking life. Do you know what I mean?
No.
It must be very frustrating for you as someone as well, though, because there are also a lot of people who will. You've told your own story, but not everyone's going to read your book. There are a lot of people who also want to almost co-opt your story a little bit and tell it. You know, there's a lot of people who want to write about him. There's a lot of people that want to write about your story or your aspect of that. Journalists call you. They want to. You know, they might take your words and spin them in a way. How do you feel about that? Because, you know, the journalists, because like you say, those journalists are all looking for quotes, and you might go, well, actually, I feel all right about it, and they'll go, next, he's not. Yeah, next, like, exactly. The next one we can call who's been in this sort of. How do you feel about other people taking that story and trying to spin it to make it their own? You know, maybe their own front page or their own sensational side.
How do I feel? I've grown up watching almost weekly stories about him. So them phoning me and then not using what I have to say because it doesn't meet the headlines that they want to put out there. Oh, you know what? When you compare things, what's happened, let them get on with it.
Yeah.
It's just, I think, we're all aware of what the media do.
It's almost inconsequential in a sense towards your bigger the greater good in a way.
Yeah.
And I guess in a way it is also pushing people towards maybe seeking out your story and,
well, the thing is, I'm a bit of a watcher, and I know a lot of people do of documentaries about serial killers and all of that because they are seen as totally different, and I find it interesting what goes on. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I actually enjoy watching them because I want
crime programs in general. I find them fascinating. But since meeting you today, I'll always watch them a bit differently from now on because I'll always think more about the victims of what they went and did because you get into all the gory details and the police trying to catch them, and you think more about that than the people who are left behind.
What's going on for them at the moment?
The victims of the crime who are left behind. You know what I mean? So
I do have to. What was the one? Was it Marilyn Kircher? The girl who was on holiday. I don't know what her name is. She was an American girl who was accused of killing another girl in some sort of sex triangle.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Yeah.
There was a documentary on that, and the thing that struck me most about that was there was an English journalist that was involved who was flown over there, and he was a sick, twisted piece of shit because he was basically like, it was great. It was a young, good-looking girl who probably killed other people. It sold papers for us. And I sort of got...
Who was he saying that? In the documentary?
Yeah. So this journalist is sitting there sort of saying it's sex, she's attractive.
He actually... I remember the documentary.
He said
sick
piece of
it
shit.
had everything.
It had everything.
And what he meant was the full story. Yeah. It was great for us.
And it was also great... It was great from a documentary telling perspective because he was almost like such a raw-faced arsehole that you were just sort of like... You almost looked at him and thought, I can't believe you're saying this.
And in a way, it was sick the way he spoke, but the truth be told...
It was such a great documentary.
The way I look at it was... So many journalists are this man. Yeah. But we're finally getting one of them actually acting how they really are behind closed doors.
Why that phone call
but it could have been a bit more sensitive, couldn't it?
He was the most insensitive
but
man.
He's the perfect example of an arsehole journal, basically.
Do you often hear other people's story told, or in hearing other people's story told, has there been any sort of therapy or kind of help in hearing what other people have been through? Because you say you're part of a support group, or you've been...
Well, I set up a support group in Leeds, SAM, Support After Murder and Manslaughter. And, well, in fact, they helped me years ago because I watched this crime... It was Trial and Retribution, and I was disturbed. This is 19 years after Mum had died. I was like... I jumped out of my sofa and I'm pleading for this guy to stop killing this woman. It was like I was watching my mum being killed, and I rang Samaritans and they put me in touch with this organisation. That was many years ago. When I finally started turning the corner, I then contacted them and said, listen, can I help? No, sorry, I'll retrace that. They asked me to set up a support group in Leeds, and I said, what do I know? So you know everything. So I did set up this, so I went for about 4 or 5 years where we would get together once a month. And I can't say that I was helped by hearing their stories, but I certainly feel that they were helped by knowing that I'd been through something similar and I was willing to listen to them.
Someone who made it to their 40s essentially and didn't...
Well, I mean, there were some people older than me because they'd lost children,
right.
But all I'm saying is somebody 30 years later has come through it and understands. They just took some comfort from that. Mm-hmm. Actually, a couple of years ago I was asked to go over to Liverpool because this woman's son had been killed, wrong place, wrong time. Wasn't even supposed to be him, and she found a way to me and says, and I sat with her. I went over to Liverpool and sat with her, and they wanted to adopt me. It was beautiful, but just sitting down with someone like that, so that, because most people don't appreciate what that feels like. So for them to sit down with someone that does appreciate their pain, that was just a beautiful thing to do.
And you, one thing we haven't covered is you are now in a relationship and you've got kids.
I'm married.
Yeah.
I've got 3 ginger kids. Yeah. But when I looked at you then, I thought...
He has a hint of red in the beard.
I've got the old Viking genetics, mate, to be honest with you.
No shit.
But what I do want to talk about is you've now got a really successful career. You're a public speaker.
Yeah.
And how did you get into that, and what does that entail?
When I wrote the book, I was on national TV and in particular Radio 4 Woman's Hour, and somebody heard me share my story 10 minutes and said, we've got a conference coming up and we'd like you to come and share your story. Now, bearing in mind lack of confidence and low self-esteem throughout most of my life, I thought there is no way I'm going to do that. But then I thought again, I knew I had that lack of confidence, so I thought if I do it, it might help me in some way. So I accepted, I went along, I did an appalling job, I sat down in a chair, I read out of my book, and it was the start of that journey, and that was 2005. And then I became a Samaritan volunteer myself, and they had a conference. They said, because I'd written this book, can you come and speak? I went and did this thing, it was horrific. And then somebody put me in touch with, or suggested I join the Professional Speaking Association.
Right. I
went along, intimidated, they're all there with the suits on and little old me. And I thought this could be good for me. And I realised there was an industry where people are, inspirational speakers share their story. And I decided, when the book came out, I went to university. I thought I'll get some qualifications. But because I was getting these invitations to speak, I made a decision, right, no, I'm going to change tack. All the money from my first book, little did some of the extended family realise I spent all the money on going to university because I packed my job in, so there's no money from the book left. So, but I decided, forget that, write that off, and I'm going to become a speaker. That was in 2006. I made the decision, November, the 4th of November, Saturday the 4th of November at the Belfry. I saw a speaker from America called W. Mitchell. I thought, oh my God, blew me away. I thought that is what I should be doing.
And there are some fantastic speakers out there, because I've got into watching some of them. Who's that big giant guy? Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins. I've seen it. So in 2006.
He's quite a compelling speaker.
Yeah, he basically tries to break people down and build them back up and all that, and cut your bullshit away. But he charges like thousands and thousands to come and I realised, I was like, I mean, obviously he's very talented, he's very good at what he does, but it's like I didn't realise it's a business.
And I realised that. And I thought, you know what, I've got a message for the world, I've got a story like this guy, I'm going to do this. And I walked away from uni, my tutor said don't, and I thought, no, I'm going to do that. I knew I had a story, I was a crap speaker, but I thought I'll just get some help, get some coaching and gain some confidence. I speak around the world now. I've spoken 2,000 times, over 2,000 times. I'm speaking this afternoon in London. I've
seen your TED Talks, which was fantastic for anyone.
Oh, that's a small one, Richard McCann, TEDx, 18-minute version.
Yeah, it's condensed, but I mean, this is the real deal. This is the best thing. All right, but do check out. You've done a lot of good talks.
Yeah, I've been around a little bit, and I've learned the hard way. I made some mistakes, and now I also do presentation skills training. I teach people to do what we're doing now, which is just have a chat in a conversational style.
But it's hard though. This is what people like. The thing is, when you watch it feels like you're in the room and people are having a conversation. But when you have to get on stage, I've had to do that a few times, and I think I'm quite naturally a good speaker, but it is a skill.
It's quite a performative thing, isn't it?
Well, you just got to calm the nerves and that, and you look out and there's all these eyes on you, and everyone's saying, all right, go on then, entertain us.
All the cynics.
And then there's a few of them I've done that about 5 times. I never normally do that.
He's normally a good speaker.
But there's a few of them who will be doubting you, and it is quite. You're under a lot of pressure.
You are, and what I've got up my sleeve though is they don't normally know what's coming,
right?
Because I know I've got that. And it's going to surprise them. I'll just take them back. I'll get those cynics. I'll win them over within 5 minutes.
And once again, nothing's as bad as losing your mum. So you can conquer that nervousness and anxiety, I suppose, of being in front of people. Is that one of the things that you drew from initially?
Well, the thing that gave me the courage to be able to get up, and what we have skipped over incidentally, is the first time I got up, which is when I was 13 at school. The public. What it is, my English teacher, who I'm back in touch with 30 odd years later, my English teacher, Mr. Hill, encouraged me to take part in the public speaking competition. I was petrified, but I found the courage to get on, and I found the courage because I lost my mum. Had I not lost my mum, I found the courage because I thought, well, that can't compare to losing your mum. So I got on there. My dad raced pigeons, and I spoke about pigeons. And do you know what? Coincidentally, unlike everybody else who had slides and OHP projectors and posters, I had nothing. I just spoke like this. The reason I say it's coincidental is because for the 12 years I've been speaking, I always use slides. This afternoon in London, I'm doing a talk without any slides whatsoever. And it's going to take some guts, but I have to rely on the story and I have to give a bit more detail and see how it goes. But I took a pigeon in with me. That was my only prop, and I won the competition. And
you took a pigeon
that was my only prop. It was in a basket side of the stage, and after I got a bit more confident, I said, excuse me, got this pigeon, and it was just a beautiful moment. I've got this big poster in my office, which was drawn, funnily enough, by a woman called Mo Lee. Mo Lee was attached to my Peter Sutcliffe, and I helped her over the phone over the years. She's become an artist. She drew me this big picture of it's a guy with the pigeon like that, and it's because she knows how significant it was, and it was a significant moment for me. And I guess it was a seed that was planted that was blossomed all these years later, and it's what I do.
There are those sort of weird strands, because you never would have known her had you not been through that situation.
No, correct.
Yeah. And so, why pigeons? Because
my dad raced them.
You grew up, so did you grow up around that? And were you quite sort of into pigeons?
I had to feed them.
How do you feed a pigeon? You sort of drop some stuff
You take a pigeon corn.
Yeah.
I've got a confession, actually. So my dad would sometimes be working away, and it'd say, like, go get £2 worth in money of pigeon corn. So I go to the pet shop and say, can I have £1.50?
I knew that was coming.
He'd always give me the 50p change, and I'd go buy three bars of chocolate.
I listened to one of the interviews you did on the way down, and when you said from day one you were a little bit like that, because you'd go next door and you'd go and do a shopping for her, and she'd give you 50p or some sweets and that.
I
thought to myself, I knew I was going to get on with you, because I thought I
did that.
No, well, I don't know if it's a northern thing, but like the pigeons and all that. Pigeons are like, my cousins had pigeons and that, and they had nothing, but they had loads of pigeons, and you'd go around and like in the back, and there'd just be like so many pigeons and stuff.
What do the pigeons do? Like, I'm a little bit I remember driving around, because if you live in the Midlands like I did, and you live out sort of near the little villages, a lot of people do keep pigeons.
They're either show pigeons, so they look good, and you take them to shows and they win awards.
And are they pretty birds?
Some of them are. You have to pay for them though.
Right.
Or they're homing pigeons, and you'll race them.
These days, there's a lot of plastic surgery and enhancements going on.
Do you know what? There's some
Kim
stuff.
Kardashians of the pigeon world.
With giant asses.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some shenanigans went on, because what your competitors would do is they'd put a cat in the loft that would kill the pigeons. Some stuff went on.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, have you ever
like the burger wars?
Sabotage.
It was like pigeon wars.
And you knew that, and people come over, put a cat in.
Yeah.
What, they'd like
through the night. They just open
this,
and then put a lock on the door, and so I knew all about the pigeons, and I just basically spoke about them, and I won the competition.
Did you like pigeons? I know there's a little bit of people are probably going, bloody hell, the pigeons.
Yeah, but this is a typical Lawrence subject.
I'm just saying though. I mean, I find it quite compelling to find out what people are driven by when they're kids. Do you like pigeons then? Still? Yeah. Still to this day?
I can't say that I like them, but I like to see them.
Have you got any tattoos?
No.
Have you ever got a tattoo?
Did you not hear when he first came in? He said the man with all the tattoos meets the man with no tattoos.
Because I'm the type of person, like, I like meaningful tattoos and stuff. And if I was you, one day, get yourself a pigeon.
No. But when I see pigeons now, like, we might be on holiday somewhere, and a pigeon will turn up and say, "Oh, that's my dad." So I lost my dad, and it's just a nice part to my story. Is the pigeons.
One thing that we started down, but then didn't really get onto, because speaking out of speaking, was losing your mum very young is obviously very difficult. A lot of people identify having a poor relationship with your mother, or not having a relationship with your mother, as therefore a reason maybe you were going to these poor relationships with women in your life. And we get a lot of emails from young men on this show who maybe they only have one idea about what kind of relationship they want, and they don't quite know how to maybe change the way they act in relationships. So how did you go through all these poor relationships, and what were those problems, and how are you now in what you would consider to be a more healthy relationship?
Yeah, I won't say that the relationships were particularly poor. I mean, some were unhealthy, so maybe I shouldn't be going with that person, but most of them were reasonable. But I'd end it. It'd be like self-sabotage, and I'd at a subconscious level, I'd find a way to push them away, so they'd leave me, because deep down I didn't feel like I was good enough. So then I got what I felt I was deserving of. How did that change? Well, I matured, but I got the counselling. What I haven't said is I got 2 years of psychoanalysis, and I don't know how helpful that was, but I think it must have been.
What psychoanalysis? So it's not normal counselling, is it?
No, it's not. It's like. So counselling is like we'll get together, have a chat about what's going on, and kick things about. Felt like I was talking to my mum, really. This Sandra still does it. But psychoanalysis is where you basically sit down on a sofa or lay down on a kind of bed. Honestly, nothing might get said for 5 minutes.
Right.
And then whatever's going on for me, it might say like a sentence, and then you'd explore that sentence, and basically your brain would bring to the fore what needs discussing. And it might be something that you thought the night before, or the day, or just now. really, really deep. And
I think if you go through something really bad, you need someone to do that with. And whether that be a friend, an aunt, an uncle, cousin, whatever. But if you'd gone through so long without doing that, it was always going to have to happen at some point.
Sure.
You went through 2 years of that.
2 years of that and 2.5 years of counselling. So that's 4 or 5 years. And I'd still say that there are still things that are not, I don't use the word perfect, but if I say perfect, you know what I mean. There are still things that affect me that I think are as a consequence to what happened in my childhood. The thing that, and I have to battle with it, it's that the sensitive side to me, like the comment yesterday on Facebook where the girl says, no one wants to listen to your bullshit. It's like a bit of criticism, and I have to kind of hold my head high and move on from that. Well, but because it's like being criticised as a kid and not being worthy.
Not being good enough. I read when I was obviously doing my research that you had to go to the police or something about someone tweeting you nasty things as well, or something like that.
Wow, you have dug deep.
Oh mate, I'm
he
good.
Goes 10 pages deep.
I'm good at what I do.
Oh. Yes, somebody wrote something about...
Is that a common thing?
The internet's quite a cruel place.
Because to me, I get trolled every now and then. It's like, it's bullshit because I'm just True Geordie the YouTuber. It's not a big deal. But people will say things that they feel are going to hurt you the most. And whatever they've got on you, whether it's you're a shit YouTuber, they'll use that or whatever. They'll try and hurt your feelings. But to me, there's a line. Is it normal for people to cross that line?
No.
For you? Do you feel like people respect that?
Yeah, I mean, somebody saying no one doesn't listen to your bullshit, that's just somebody in a negative place. This individual that went to police about, it's 2 years on now, it was a 40th anniversary of the night Mum went. It was the 30th of October 2 years ago, and I just made a tweet or a Facebook message saying, you know what, it's quite a moving evening this evening. I was on the motorway at service station because it's 40 years ago tonight that Mum went out, and this idiot wrote something about I won't repeat what he said because it's too...
I mean, it's not important, mate.
The point is, he basically said my mum deserved what she got.
Right.
But it went into much more detail than that. I thought, you little shit, I'm not having that. So I went to the police because it did hurt me and disturbed me. And
I think you've got every right to go to the police personally.
He's on the run now, but not for that. He's on the run anyway. So.
He is now?
Yeah.
Or what?
So he got a court hearing in Leeds and didn't turn up, and they're looking for him. Hey ho.
It must be.
Do you know what?
Yeah.
Going back to the forgiveness thing, I wanted to meet the guy at court and go, do you know what? I was going to shake your hand and hope that you've learned something through that. But I'm not sure. I don't know.
It comes back to that old thing, mate, is will there be anyone on the other side of that hand who actually is aware of the level that you're operating on? Because you're enlightened at this point from all the crap that you've been through, but he's obviously not. If you're writing shit like that on the internet, I don't think you're on that mindset.
No, you're right.
So it's let him rot.
No, obviously.
Here's a question for you, mate. You've come out the other side. You're really successful now, and you're doing great. I'm not sure of how much you can remember of your mum, but how do you feel she would feel now looking down on you?
Well, I think she would feel proud. But the pause was influenced by the bloody cynics out there that would think that, I'm trying to be egotistical, saying she'll be proud. If I was my father, I would be proud of my son. If my son did some of the things that I've done, I can genuinely say that I think she's proud, and I'd be proud of my son had he dealt with the things.
I think everyone would agree with that, because it would take a lot of people under what you've been through, and
I think mainly proud about the father that I've become and the family that I've got. 'Cause I've got a beautiful family. And
didn't your son do some public speaking as well?
He did.
See, man, I've done my research, fella.
He was actually in the McCann pub doing research.
Yeah.
No, last year my son, when he was 8, was asked by the teaching assistant, what do you want to do when you're older? They've all been asked this. So I went into the parents' evening, and on the wall was some little postcards. I want to be a teacher, I want to be a fireman, I want to be a podcaster.
They all want that.
But my son was there with his little white thing saying, when I grow up I want to be a motivational speaker. I went, oh son, that's beautiful. I said, yeah Dad, but they laughed at me. Now I don't know how accurate that is. She's only 20 and she's off having a baby now. But what I did is I gave him the opportunity to start doing that. So I started bringing him along to my weekend events. And I remember the first one he did, I said, "Son, do you want to say a few words?" He went, "No." And they all laughed. But I'd got him on stage. The next one...
Which is half the battle, isn't it?
And then the next one was, in fact, I had all 3 kids on the stage because I want them to not to feel, how I did as a kid. And then the next time I went to I did a presentation skills evening. I got him on stage, and we almost like kind of staged it because I said, "Just give him some support." He stood there and he went, "If I can, you can too." They gave him a standing ovation, and we just built on from that, culminating in him. Well, actually, the penultimate one was him speaking to 1,500 teachers at the Leeds Arena, which was awesome. Mm-hmm. But the biggest one was at the Echo Arena in Liverpool, which to 3,000 people, and he's now writing his own book. He's got his own website. Check out ellismccann.co.uk. So all his videos are on Legend. There. Obviously you can't contact him, but these little videos are there. I'm trying to empower him to understand that he can do whatever he wants. And
your sort of motto in these talks is about having that attitude of you can do anything.
Well, it's the iCan. My name's Richard McCann. It's all this, the iCan philosophy.
I like the logo. I like the way you did that. It's good. And a lot of people in the audience, they seem to get a lot from what you're saying to them.
They do it. There's so many different levels. You said it earlier. There's so many levels to my story, and it might be about the relationship with the father. It might be about the abusive relationship. You wanting to have their own business. There's so many levels to it. People tend to enjoy it, and it does. I mean, it takes a really hard-faced, cynical person to listen to that and think, what was that? Most people enjoy it. And yeah, and I love sharing it.
Yeah,
it
is a great story. As hard as it's probably been to go through it at times, but it's a good one to share, like you say. I think
it is, because you know what, I get inundated by people that have either read the books or been to an event or have read or watched my TEDx, and when I get letters from people that say that I've had letters from people in prison around the world, South Africa, that the book's found its way there and they've been helped by reading how I dealt with. You know what? For every one of those letters or posts or tweets I get, it means my mum's death wasn't in vain. Right. She's helping people. She has helped people.
I think that's really important.
Myself, but it's
that must be a really nice thing to take from such an awful event. Is if good can come from bad, then you've done well.
Yeah.
Where do you think you are now in terms of your journey? Like because it's clear there are questions we've asked you where you're still emotionally sort of wrapped up in some of this stuff. Not in a sort of a showing weakness sort of way, but you know what I mean when we ask questions.
You're still going through the steps.
Yeah.
To where one day you'll I think you're, in my opinion, looking at you now, you're emotional about a story, but it's such an emotional thing that you've been through. It's impossible to just be cold. Do you know what I mean?
But where do you see yourself?
When?
Where? Well, I mean, right now.
In the future.
If we imagine there's a ladder and you started it on the bottom and the top's up here, do you feel like you're somewhere in the middle or on your journey?
Do you know what? I'd like to say the middle. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to think there's a few years left in me, and I'd like to think there's some more levels to my story that I will unpick, and ways in which I share it that, maybe through a podcast, that have yet to happen. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I think there's some work to do. I do believe that a large part of my journey, we've spoken about it, is the forgiveness side of things, and how that is put out there. Because when I speak about forgiveness, when I speak and share my story, I don't share that typically. I did it at the TEDx talk because that was about the power of the spoken word, and it was through the spoken word of Desmond Tutu that I found forgiveness. But ordinarily, if it's Barclays Bank, we don't talk about forgiveness. And I do think that's a large part of what might be going on for me going forward, getting people to think about forgiveness. I don't just mean someone that's harmed you. I'm on about in general letting things go in the workplace, and how
the little things that piss you off as well, not just a massive thing like you've been through, but it is a great quality to have, isn't it?
Yeah, that emotional awareness thing, and so there's lots for me to learn still, and to continue doing what I do, and obviously retiring one day and becoming my son's agent.
Ideal. Seems like a good plan, mate.
Actually, on that subject, my daughter, age 6, has also done it now. She hasn't got her own website, but she was inspired by him. So I've got this big event called iCan Live, and she spoke at the last iCan Live in front of 210 people, round cabaret tables. So it was a massive thing. And at the end, she came on and she almost copied his words, but she said it. Anyway, it was a beautiful thing to see.
Well, it's nice that you're giving your kids an attitude that they can achieve anything in life, because I was given that, and it's definitely helped me not feel like to be intimidated. And I think more parents, rather than putting ceilings on their kids of what they're capable of achieving, should be like that and say, oh, you can do anything you want, and support that.
You're right, and we should. But there isn't just children that need to hear that. I think, a lot of society, adults, need to understand that we shouldn't be intimidated by the chief executive or the managing director or the doctor. We're all just people at the end of the day. And I don't know when that point was that I realised that, and it's been throughout my speaking journey, but there was a point where now I can go have a meeting with the chief exec, and I'll know that you've got some fears, I'll know that you've got problems at home, and I know that there's something happening in your we're all made of similar stuff.
We spoke about this a few podcasts back, where I had that experience when I came to London, and I started mixing with people who I thought were the big wigs of the world, and I realised
they're not.
Actually, a lot of these people haven't got a fucking clue what they're doing.
Most of the time it's seen behind the door, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Whereas you get to directly talk to them and deliver the message, I suppose. So you work that out over the years.
So it must also be great because in many ways they're there to see you talk, as opposed to the other way around. When
I didn't necessarily mean speaking to them at events. I'm not just meeting people.
Yeah,
just meeting.
It's definitely a reverse of the dynamic, though. Normally, a CEO is normally the person you want to go and talk to, whereas now it's they want to come and hear what you have to say.
Some of them do.
Do you have any remaining questions, mate?
No, it's been fascinating to chat to you. Yeah.
I've got one more question I usually like to ask at the end, which is, how would you like to be remembered?
What a nice question. I think I'd like to be remembered as the son of Wilma McCann, that bounced back and recovered, having experienced that, and went on to affect countless people by sharing that story.
Well, mate, I think there's not a doubt in my mind that you've done that, so well done, pal. You're already there.
Can you tell us when we're recording?
We'll just you know the cameras on now, mate?
Did you want me to press record?
Yeah.
Alright,
do you know what? I have to say, I didn't give him a gift.
Alright.
I've got your of course, you thought they all bring you presents.
Sometimes they do, to be fair, like.
Some of them do, but I take them most of the time.
Who do you support?
He gets the Newcastle, mate.
What are the colours?
Black and white.
Got a gift for you, my friend.
It's a bloody fidget spinner.
Put it up, he knows he bloody loves them.
That is not just a fidget spinner.
It's a Newcastle.
It's in your colours. I want you to spin that and tell me if you don't want it, I'm taking it back, but spin that. That is...
Mate, tell him that's not... Genuinely, you've just made my day. Thank you very much.
He's clearly watched some of the podcast before he called the bastard.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Mate, thanks very much. And also, I want to say thank you to the followers on Twitter, because they were the ones who recommended this. And I often ask people, can you recommend me people to get on the podcast? And because I already know about the YouTubers, and I say specifically not football or YouTube, and I still get football and YouTube people suggested, but someone along the line said I can't remember their name, sorry about that.
There's one individual who said it twice, and I must check back and see what it is, but I followed up on that, and then we spoke, and I agreed, and then I thought, I better look into what he does.
Same here, mate.
And then I started looking at it, but
it's good when your followers, they know what would work, so they've obviously spent enough time watching us now to know, this is a good podcast, so big thanks to them.
Real pleasure.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this. Hopefully you lot have too. If you have, make sure hit that like button, stay subscribed. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.